Chapter 957, Eye of Reincarnation. Chapter 957, Eye of Reincarnation. Yi Tiancheng was very strong. As the number one of the phenomenon ranking, he created an unprecedented golden core phenomenon and left his name on the ancient phenomenon stele. His hands were stained with the blood of more than one void reversion. An opponent that was a major cultivation realm above him. That was enough to prove his strength. He was only a early-stage nascent soul. Not only him, even the others did not dare to imagine how strong he would be once he cultivated to late or perfected stage nascent soul realm. Yi Tiancheng had never tasted defeat throughout his cultivation journey. Fighting someone above his level was as common as eating and drinking to him. He truly had the strength to do so as well. Unfortunately, he was against the wrong opponent. Among those of the same cultivation realm, there was no one who could match Su Zimo, let alone the fact that Yi Tiancheng was 2 cultivation realms lower. Their dermic powers were not on the same level. The phenomenons collided and Yi Tiancheng was defeated. If not for the fact that he possessed a powerful defensive dermic weapon on him, he would have been severely injured in this clash. Little Granduncle Master actually has the upper hand? Nangong Ling was secretly speechless. One had to know that they had witnessed Yi Tiancheng dominating his peers with their own eyes. To many of them, Yi Tiancheng was an invincible symbol. They truly had not expected that someone of the same cultivation realm would be able to gain the upper hand against Yi Tiancheng. I'm afraid it's not as simple as just gaining the upper hand. Lu Hanyan shook her head. Right from the beginning, has Yi Tiancheng managed a proper counterattack against Granduncle Master at all? Nangong Ling and Ru Xian were stunned. Yi Tiancheng's methods were strong and he had many trump cards. Although he had endless methods and even released his golden core phenomenons, they were all defeated by Su Zimo. This was not an upper hand, but a crushing. On the battlefield, the distance between them closed rapidly. Yi Tiancheng narrowed his eyes and took out a pitch-black mountain from his storage bag unhurriedly, charging towards Su Zimo. The mountain peak expanded and shone with beams of light. That mountain was a perfect dermic weapon. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as his glabella shone and a green lotus platform flew out. Compared to the black mountain peak, the green lotus platform looked incomparably tiny. However, when the two collided, an earth-shaking sound exploded. Boom! Under everyone's watchful eyes, the perfect dermic weapon on the peak was shattered by the green lotus platform. Pust! The crowd was shocked. A perfect-grade perfected Lord dermic weapon was destroyed just like that. Even a Khanate perfected Lord dermic weapon would not be able to achieve such terrifying lethality. It's the creation green lotus. Right then, a void reversion of the Buddhist sect exclaimed as he recognized the origin of the green lotus platform. Heavens! The creation green lotus has already been resurrected and has grown to grade 5. How did this person manage to do it? That's way too scary. With the creation green lotus in hand, whose dermic weapon can compete against it? The Buddhist monks were shocked. The mountain peak exploded. Amidst the flying sand and rocks, Yi Tiancheng's figure suddenly flashed and lunged over with a stone hammer in his hands. He seemed to have expected that the mountain peak would not be able to stop Su Zimo. The stone hammer looked ordinary and rough. However, it gave off an extremely ancient aura as though it came from the primordial era. Shatter! Yi Tiancheng raised his arm and smashed it towards Su Zimo's head. Su Zimo's expression changed and the creation green lotus tore through the void, colliding against the stone hammer. Boom! It was yet another deafening sound. The stone hammer flew out of his hands. The creation green lotus was sent flying as well, turning into a streak of green light and falling into the crowd. Yi Tiancheng shuddered and his eyes shone with disbelief. Although the stone hammer in his hands did not have any dermic patterns, it had a powerful origin and could even smash a Khanate perfected Lord dermic weapon. He had not expected that the collision with the creation green lotus would cause him to lose his grip and have the stone hammer fly out of his hands. Su Zimo was surprised as well. A grade 5 creation green lotus was already comparable to a Khanate Dao being dermic weapon. He had not expected that the stone hammer would not shatter. Of course, that did not affect the entire situation. Yi Tiancheng was slightly stunned, but Su Zimo did not hesitate at all. He strode forward and extended his palm, clenching it into a fist and punching towards Yi Tiancheng. Yi Tiancheng snapped out of his stupor and punched back without fear. Bang! There was a dull sound of defeat when the fists clashed. Yi Tiancheng grunted and his expression changed. His physique was definitely not weak, and he was only a step away from cultivating tsunami blood as well. Unexpectedly, his fist nearly shattered after exchanging a single punch with Su Zimo. The pain was unbearable. Ha 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 ha. Su Zimo reared his head in laughter. Yi Tiancheng, you're still far from Di'in. Back in Myriad Phenomenon City, the two of them fought. Because Su Zimo could not use the blood chi of the demon race, he was disadvantaged in melee combat and was suppressed by Di'in. He had no choice but to release his dermic arts to counterattack before he managed to recover. But now, Su Zimo had suppressed Yi Tiancheng with just his physical strength without even activating his bloodline. Not necessarily. Yi Tiancheng's voice was cold as a vicious glint flashed through his eyes. Immediately after, his eyes shone with a strange fluctuation that seemed as though the entire world was spinning. Time went haywire and space was distorted. Two beams of light shot out from Yi Tiancheng's eyes and collided in midair, forming a gigantic wheel that crushed over slowly, as though it wanted to engulf the entire world. This wheel encompassed everything, as though it could turn the 5 elements inside out, throw yin and yang into chaos and turn the universe upside down, causing all living beings to fall into reincarnation. The Eye of Reincarnation. It was one of the ancient visual techniques. The two of them were extremely close, and there was no way the visual technique could be dodged. The cultivators were moved. Nobody expected that at this point of the battle, when Yi Tiancheng was about to suffer a crushing defeat, he would counterattack and release the Eye of Reincarnation. Visual techniques were the hardest to cultivate. Up till this point of his cultivation, Su Zimo had only encountered 2 or 3 paragons with visual techniques. To think that Chaos Essence Sect would possess 2 of them. It was normal for cultivators with visual techniques to be invincible among their peers. Visual techniques could be released instantly and unexpectedly. These attacks were almost always fatal. Even if his opponent could react, he might not be able to defend against it. Even if he could defend against it, he would have to exhaust his mental strength. At this moment, the cultivator could take advantage of the situation and kill his opponent. Leng Ro and the others were shocked. They knew that Su Zimo knew of an extremely terrifying visual technique as well. Back when Su Zimo was fighting against the God race experts, he had already released this sort of visual technique and gained the upper hand. However, that was the Illumination Dragon Eye. Once released, it would expose the fact that he was a demon. If Dao Lord Lanyu interfered, Su Zimo might even die here, let alone be able to kill Yi Tiancheng. In the blink of an eye, a dense cluster of flying swords appeared in Su Zimo's right eye. They were tiny and exquisite, resembling needles. The needles were none other than the 36 flying swords conjured by the Illumination Stone. In the blink of an eye, the 36 flying swords had already formed the Illumination Sword formation and shot out from Su Zimo's right eye. Chapter 958, Undefeatable. Chapter 958, Undefeatable. Because there were Dharma characteristics present at the Thousand Crane Tea Party, Su Zimo had not used any techniques of the demon race as well as his second essence spirit the entire time. Otherwise, Yi Tiancheng might not be able to last more than 10 moves if Su Zimo released his full cultivation. It was the same now. In a battle of visual techniques, Su Zimo chose not to use the Illumination Dragon Eye. Instead, he released the Illumination Sword formation. The flying swords that were made from the Illumination Stone complemented the sword formation perfectly, unleashing its might to its limits. Clang! Clang! The sword formation formed by the 36 flying swords vibrated and buzzed, forming a bedazzling sword beam that slashed towards the incoming wheel. Boom! A deafening bang sounded when the two powers collided. Instantly, the sword formation dispersed and the 36 flying swords turned into sword lights that returned to Su Zimo's right eye. Little Granduncle Master lost? Ru Xian and the others felt their hearts clench and had worried expressions on their faces. Many cultivators were watching the battlefield intently as well. The wheel of Yi Tiancheng's visual technique hovered in midair, silent and motionless. All of a sudden, cracks appeared on the gigantic wheel of the visual technique and it shone with an endless light. It was sharp and almost engulfed Yi Tiancheng. Ah! Yi Tiancheng let out a tragic cry. His eyes were filled with unbearable pain and 2 streams of blood flowed out, looking extremely gruesome. His clothes were shredded by the sword chi as well, revealing a dark golden inner armor that shone with 5 lights. It was a perfect-grade defensive dermic weapon. If not for that defensive dermic weapon, Yi Tiancheng's body would have been torn apart. What are you 9 beasts waiting for? Kill him. Yi Tiancheng had a mournful expression as he pointed in Su Zimo's direction with bloodshot eyes. Roar! The 9 WYRMS that were initially on the ground let out a furious roar as demonic chi surged. Their bodies expanded as they broke free from the chains and soared into the air, revealing their sharp claws as they charged towards Su Zimo. A stir broke out amongst the crowd. Yi Tiancheng's crushing defeat was already beyond most people's expectations. Unexpectedly, he was indignant after his defeat and ordered his 9 WYRMS to surround his opponent. Yi Tiancheng was the number 1 of the phenomenon ranking and was known as the number 1 perfected lord. He could not lose. In order to kill Su Zimo, he had already resorted to unscrupulous means. He no longer cared about his reputation. What are you guys doing? Furious, Ru Xian stood out right away and hollered. Dao Bin Yuding had a stern expression as he turned to look at Dao Lord Lan Yu and said in a deep voice, Senior Lan Yu, aren't you going to stop it? Are you going to allow Yi Tiancheng to bully with numbers? Pretty sister Sect Master. Little Fatty protested hurriedly, what's up with Yi Tiancheng having 9 WYRMS to help him? It's time to put your demon revealing mirror to use. Hurry and use it to reflect them. You're wrong. Chaos Essence Sect's Void Reversion Dao being sneered, this isn't the Paragon battle. This is a personal feud and there's no such thing as bullying in numbers. Dao being Chi Guy of Zephyr Thunder Palace said, although the 9 WYRMS are demons, they are the mounts of Yi Tiancheng and are a part of his strength. It's reasonable for them to help him fight. What you guys said makes sense. Let's continue watching. Dao Lord Lan Yu said indifferently. Leng Ro, Little Fatty, and everyone else from 100 Refinements Sect were enraged. Everyone could tell that Dao Lord Lan Yu was biased. Master, you. Leng Ro hesitated and looked at Dao Lord Lan Yu with disappointment. Dao Lord Lan Yu ignored her. This was a cultivator without any backing. Furthermore, he had offended several super sections. The other cultivator had a super sect backing him and an even more terrifying monster incarnate's senior brother with limitless potential. It was clear which side to support. This is bad. Snowdrift Valley's Paragon, Ling Bai, shook his head. The 9 WYRMS combined are equivalent to 9 paragons. Furthermore, one of them is a mid-level fiend demon. You underestimate him. Fairy Luo Shui smiled indifferently. The show has just begun. On the battlefield. Standing in midair, Su Zimo's green robes fluttered as he looked at the 9 incoming WYRMS with a mocking gaze. In Thousand Demon Valley, there were countless mid-level fiend demons that died in his hands. Su Zimo conjured hand seals and opened his mouth once more. Ma. Daming mantra was released. At the same time, Su Zimo conjured a dermic seal with the daming mantra. Boom! A gigantic golden palm descended from the skies, blotting out the skies and emitting an endless might. It shone brightly as though it could subdue all demons. Demon subduing seal. The first 3 dermic seals of the Daming Dermic Seal were the Fiend Suppression Seal, Demon Subduing Seal and Immortal Trap Seal. Every single seal was targeted. For example, the Fiend Suppression Seal was the most effective against fiend cultivators. The Demon Subduing Seal had the greatest effect on demons. Su Zimo cultivated a top cultivation technique of the Buddhist monasteries, and his essence spirit was condensed with immense dermic powers. Coupled with the Mingwang prayer beads and Daming mantra, even Yi Tiancheng might not be able to defend against this top-tier Buddhist dermic art, let alone the 9 WYRMS. Ah! 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 The moment the 9 WYRMS charged forward, they were suppressed by the gigantic palm. Only a mid-level fiend demon WYRM broke free from the power of the demon subduing seal and charged forward with widened eyes. In a flash, Su Zimo turned into a purple streak of lightning and arrived beside the WYRM in an instant. The burst of the lightning escape technique was shockingly fast. The WYRM's body was massive, and although it was ferocious, it was relatively clumsy, and it was too late to turn around. "Come on down." Grabbing the WYRM's tail, Su Zimo hollered and swung his arm, smashing it against the ground. Boom! The ground quaked violently. More than half of the WYRM's body was smashed into the ground, and it was covered in wounds. Its tendons and bones were broken and its head was bleeding. It no longer had its previous arrogance. Pust. This power. 100 years ago, there was a rumor that he was invincible in melee combat. The legend is true. All the cultivators widened their eyes in shock. How was this a cultivator? Even the top pure-blooded ferocious beasts were suppressed by his body. This person was even fiercer than ferocious beasts. Perfected Lord Pang Lan's eyes revealed a deep fear as well. He realized that he could not get close to Su Zimo. Although Heavenly Dipper Sect specialized in body tempering and his physique was not weak, it was no different from paper in Su Zimo's hands. Even so, Perfected Lord Pang Lan had no intention of retreating. He sneered coldly with a cold glint in his eyes. No matter what, Yi Tiancheng was at early stage, nascent soul. He had expended a lot of dermic powers in the fight earlier on, and his essence spirit was weak. Using this opportunity, he hurriedly consumed a large number of elixirs. Yi Tiancheng had just caught his breath and was about to charge forward when he realized that his 9 WYRMS had already been crushed by Su Zimo. Yi Tiancheng's heart skipped a beat as fear filled his eyes for the first time. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had encountered countless strong foes and had yet to be defeated. Although he had been through multiple life and death situations and was on the brink of death, he had never felt fear in his heart. But right now, Yi Tiancheng was afraid. The cultivator with delicate features looked like a man-eating ferocious beast. That seemingly frail body seemed to contain a terrifying power that could shake the world and suppress all living beings. This man is undefeatable. That was the only thought that remained in Yi Tiancheng's mind. Chapter 959, Die. Chapter 959, Die. Looking at Su Zimo's indifferent gaze, Yi Tiancheng felt fear and took half a step back instinctively. With that half a step back, Yi Tiancheng's aura dissipated instantly. You're finished. In a flash, Su Zimo arrived beside Yi Tiancheng the moment he said his last word. Without any unnecessary movements, he punched out and the bloodline in his body surged with a torrential sound. Tsunami blood. Su Zimo released the power of his bloodline with that punch. Yi Tiancheng's expression changed. Under the envelopment of the power of that punch, he felt as though he was about to be drowned without a corpse left. At this critical moment of life and death, Yi Tiancheng roared and released his bloodline at the same time. Dermic powers surged within his body as he countered with a punch. Bang! The two fists collided. Crack! 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 The sound of bones cracking could be heard from Yi Tiancheng's fist. Under countless gazes, his fist was deformed and his flesh was mangled. His broken bones were exposed in a frightening manner. His entire arm could not withstand the power of that punch, and his perfect-grade inner armor shattered as his flesh exploded into a mist of blood. Su Zimo's bloodline was way too terrifying. Now that he had activated his bloodline, the might of his punch was frightening. Ah! Yi Tiancheng let out a tragic cry as his features contorted in pain. The veins on his neck popped and he staggered backwards. A single punch. A single punch was all it took to injure Yi Tiancheng severely. Even if he survived, his arm would be completely crippled. "I'll take your life within 3 moves." Su Zimo hollered and extended his palm, slapping down on the top of Yi Tiancheng's head. Even if he was in his peak condition, Yi Tiancheng could not escape from Su Zimo's pursuit. Now that he was severely injured and his movement speed was reduced, there was naturally no way he could dodge. He could only raise his other arm to defend. Bang! Although the palm strike seemed light, it snapped Yi Tiancheng's arm. The power of that palm was not expended and continued pressing down, landing on Yi Tiancheng's chest. Piak! Through the thick inner armor, Yi Tiancheng's chest suddenly caved in. Yi Tiancheng's face turned blood red as he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes dimmed and he used his last bit of strength to let out a tragic cry. "Save me!" A beam of light flew out from the top of Yi Tiancheng's head towards Chaos Essence Sect's camp. It was his essence spirit. Yi Tiancheng was extremely decisive and knew that he would definitely die if he did not abandon his body at this distance. Given his condition, there was no way he could escape from Su Zimo's pursuit with his battered body. He could only escape this calamity by using the speed of his essence spirit. The crowd was shocked when they saw that. On the one hand, it was because the outcome of the battle had been decided and Yi Tiancheng was already forced into such an embarrassing situation. On the other hand, in this battle, dermic powers surged and energy shot in all directions. It was equivalent to committing suicide for a nascent soul's essence spirit to leave their body. However, right after, to everyone's surprise, Yi Tiancheng's essence spirit traveled through the chaotic battlefield at an extremely fast speed and was completely safe. His essence spirit was shrouded by a layer of gray fog, as though it could withstand the astral wind. Chaos Essence Sect had a top-notch spirit refinement technique that could allow one's essence spirit to cultivate Chaos Essence Chi at the nascent soul realm. Although he was only at early-stage nascent soul realm, Yi Tiancheng's essence spirit could behave like the essence spirit of a void reversion. It could leave the body and roam the universe. At the same time, he sought help from Chaos Essence Sect, hoping that the Sect's void reversions would be able to stop Su Zimo and resolve this crisis. Yi Tiancheng's plan was not bad. Unfortunately, he had underestimated Su Zimo. Oh. His essence spirit can leave his body? Su Zimo raised his brows slightly and said indifferently, however, "It's useless." It was already not easy for an early-stage nascent soul to be able to eject their essence spirits. Back then, Su Zimo had only managed to reach this stage thanks to the creation Green Lotus. If Yi Tiancheng were to cultivate to late-stage nascent soul realm and was on par with Su Zimo, it would take a lot of effort to kill him. However, there was no doubt that Su Zimo would be able to crush him in today's battle. Chaos Essence Sect's void reversion leaped into the air hurriedly and conjured hand seals, preparing to release dermic arts to save Yi Tiancheng. However, a streak of lightning flashed past his eyes. Swash! It was too fast. Before he could react, another person appeared before him. Su Zimo. A pair of wings formed from dermic powers behind him dissipated slowly. With the burst of ethereal wings and lightning escape, Su Zimo arrived first and grabbed Yi Tiancheng's essence spirit in his palm. The entire process happened in the blink of an eye. The void reversion of Chaos Essence Sect had yet to form his dermic art. The void reversion of Chaos Essence Sect was shocked and retreated 2 steps. Even he was afraid of being closed in by Su Zimo. The other Chaos Essence Sect cultivators were even more flustered and retreated. "You can't kill me." Yi Tiancheng's voice sounded from Su Zimo's palm. He was fierce on the outside but cowardly on the inside. Everyone looked over. In Su Zimo's palm, there was a gigantic ball of dermic power. Yi Tiancheng's essence spirit was trapped within and could not move at all, looking extremely terrified. Su Zimo, release him. The void reversion of Chaos Essence Sect reacted and shouted. Yi Tiancheng's essence spirit was in Su Zimo's palm and could be crushed with a single thought. He was cautious and did not dare to act rashly. Taking a deep breath of air, Dao Lord Lan Yu stood up slowly and said in a deep voice, Su Zimo, since the outcome has been decided, let him go. Fu. A mocking look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. Turning around, he looked at the high and mighty Dao Lord Lan Yu and asked instead, if I were in Yi Tiancheng's position, would you plead for me, Sect Master Lan Yu? Dao Lord Lan Yu's expression darkened. It was clearly stated that the fight between Su Zimo and Yi Tiancheng was a personal feud and had nothing to do with Thousand Crane Sect. However, if Yi Tiancheng could be saved, Chaos Essence Sect would owe the savior a favor. In Dao Lord Lan Yu's heart, if it was as Su Zimo said, she would definitely not plead for mercy on behalf of Su Zimo and offend super sects like Chaos Essence Sect if the latter was in the same position. Suppressing the rage in her heart, Dao Lord Lan Yu said sternly, Junior, I've been through this before. Let me give you a piece of advice. You're too sharp and fearless. You'll definitely get yourself killed in the future. Killed? Su Zimo smiled indifferently. I've been burdened with a lot of troubles to begin with. I don't mind adding one more to the list. Su Zimo, there's no deep hatred between us. It's merely the title of the number one perfected lord. I'll let you have it. Why you don't have to kill me? Yi Tiancheng was scared out of his wits as he begged for mercy with a trembling voice filled with endless fear. The cultivator sighed. The number one of the phenomenon ranking and the number one perfected lord of Middle Continent had fallen to such a state, it was truly a pity. Not many people could remain calm in the face of death. Yi Tiancheng, I wouldn't even be bothered to fight if it's just for the title of the number one perfected lord. Su Zimo's gaze shifted as he glared at the essence spirit in his palm and said coldly, however, of all things, you shouldn't have harbored designs on Leng Ro. Yi Tiancheng's heart turned cold when he heard that. Su Zimo had already raised his head and looked at everyone from Chaos Essence Sect, saying coldly, since Di'in wants to lure me out, I'll give him a huge gift today. Die. Su Zimo clenched his fist. Yi Tiancheng's essence spirit was crushed and destroyed on the spot. Chapter 960, Spirit Consciousness Attack. Chapter 960, Spirit Consciousness Attack. Instantly, the mystic courtyard fell into silence. When they saw that, everyone opened their mouths slightly with conflicted expressions and could not calm down for a long time. Dead. Yi Tiancheng, a number one of the phenomenon ranking who was lauded as the number one perfected lord of the Middle Continent, one of the two paragons of Chaos Essence Sect, was killed right in front of everybody just like that. Apart from shock, everyone felt emotional. This was the cultivation world. So what if he was a paragon? So what if he was a monster incarnate? There was still a danger of being killed if he did not stand at the peak of Tianhuang mainland. A paragon that died prematurely would eventually be forgotten. It wouldn't take too long, probably 100 years, before most people forget who Yi Tiancheng was. He was too young. He rose like a comet and had only been famous for a few decades. To think that he would meet an even more terrifying monster incarnate and end up in such a state. Everyone knew that Yi Tiancheng deserved to die. The reason why he came to propose marriage was to force little fatty, Ji Qingtian, Shi Jian and the other old friends of Su Zimo to appear so that he could kill them one by one. However, Yi Tiancheng did not expect that instead of luring a snake out of its cave, he lured a dragon instead. Jian Wuzong looked at the center of the battlefield at the cultivator in his seemingly plain green robes with a hint of fear in his eyes. It was only at that moment that he truly understood why Hang Chuyu did not dare to attack that person. He recalled the 2 times he attacked that person and felt a sense of trepidation. Nobody would object to the description that this man was decisive to kill and was sharp and fearless. Even a monster incarnate like Yi Tiancheng who had such a background, status, and fame was killed just like that. There was no hesitation at all. However, Jian Wuzong refused to believe that this person was bloodthirsty. That was because he was still alive. He had attacked that person twice but was still alive. Dao Lord Lan Yu had an ugly expression. She had not expected that Su Zimo would kill Yi Tiancheng right here without giving her any face. The return of this man is going to cause a bloodbath in the cultivation world again. Is he declaring war on Di'in? Di'in is now at Void Reversion Realm. Although his combat strength is strong, he's a major cultivation realm weaker than Di'in. Isn't that a little arrogant? Gradually, discussions broke out in the crowd. No matter what, there should be no doubt about the title of the number one perfected lord. That's right. He's probably the only one qualified to drink the last cup of supreme-grade mystic tea. Shoo! A cold beam tore through the air and pierced towards the back of Su Zimo's head, arriving instantly. Just as everyone was discussing, someone suddenly attacked without any warning. When the cold light was about to pierce Su Zimo's head, a voice sounded. You'll have to get through me if you want to drink supreme-grade mystic tea. He attacked first before speaking. This was a complete ambush. Furthermore, that person's dermic powers were terrifying and 6 dermic patterns shone on his flying sword. It was a Khanate perfected lord dermic weapon with shocking lethality. He did not hold back on this attack at all. Shing! Right in front of everyone, the flying sword pierced through Su Zimo's head. However, no blood splattered. Everyone focused their gazes. Su Zimo, who was penetrated by the flying sword, was gradually dissipating into nothingness. However, the real Su Zimo had already dodged to the side. Because his speed was too fast, the figure left in his original position was just an afterimage. If it was anyone else, they might not have been able to dodge that sword. However, Su Zimo possessed the unfathomable spirit perception. The moment the flying sword was released, he had already dodged it. The flying sword spun in midair and turned into a streak of light, returning to a cultivator of Heavenly Dipper Sect. It was perfected Lord Pang Lan who had attacked. You have a death wish? Su Zimo looked at perfected Lord Pang Lan coldly. Fufu. Perfected Lord Pang Lan smiled gently. Yi Tiancheng is just a young lad who's still wet behind the ears. I don't take him seriously at all. Do you think that you're the number one perfected lord after killing Yi Tiancheng? Su Zimo no longer wanted to listen to perfected Lord Pang Lan's nonsense and walked towards the ladder. A shuddering malevolent aura surged over. Perfected Lord Pang Lan felt that he was not facing a cultivator but an ancient demon whose hands were stained with endless blood. His heart skipped a beat. No matter what, the melee combat strength that Su Zimo displayed earlier on still terrified him. He must not be closed in. You're the one with a death wish. Perfected Lord Pang Lan roared and his glabella shone with an incomparably tyrannical power as his spirit consciousness surged forth. A spirit consciousness attack. This was an ability that cultivators possessed after cultivating to the void reversion realm. By advancing and condensing their essence spirits further, their essence spirits could leave their bodies and roam the world. This was an ability that was only available after they were at that level. Normally, void reversions could crush nascent souls. Apart from the increase in strength of their dermic powers, spiritual consciousness attacks were also the most direct method for void reversions to suppress nascent souls. Not every void reversion knew essence spirit's secret skills. However, every void reversion could use spirit consciousness attacks. The crowd was shocked when they sensed the energy fluctuation. Perfected Lord Pang Lan is already able to release a spirit consciousness attack at perfected nascent soul realm. No wonder he did not take Yi Tiancheng seriously. This is his greatest trump card. No matter how terrifying Su Zimo's physique is and how strong he is in melee combat, he won't be able to defend against spirit consciousness attacks. As expected of the top of the phenomenon ranking 400 years ago. He saw through Su Zimo's weakness with a single glance. Su Zimo is doomed. Perfected Lord Pang Lan became excited when he heard the discussions around him. Yi Tiancheng and Su Zimo would be his stepping stones from this day forth. This is your trump card? Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded calmly. Perfected Lord Pang Lan suddenly felt uneasy. There was no panic or fear in Su Zimo's eyes. There was only calmness and a hint of mockery. A spirit consciousness attack? Su Zimo smirked and said slowly, I can do it too. The moment he said that, raging tides surged within his consciousness. The black-haired essence spirit stood in the air and his black hair danced, crackling with lightning. Sanskrit echoed in his consciousness, vast and sacred, lasting for a long time. The top two cultivation techniques of Purple Thunder Manual and Great Day Rolai Sutra were already pushed to their limits. An even more terrifying spirit consciousness burst forth from Su Zimo's glabella to meet Perfected Lord Pang Lan's spirit consciousness attack head-on. Boom! The two spirit consciousnesses collided with a deafening bang. Ripples of air currents appeared in the void and surged in all directions, toppling the cultivators at the front. Perfected Lord Pang Lan's eyes were filled with endless shock and he was dumbfounded. He had not expected that Su Zimo would be able to release a spirit consciousness attack as well. Furthermore, it was even more ferocious and terrifying than his spirit consciousness attack. Before long, Perfected Lord Pang Lan's spirit consciousness was shattered and dispersed. The remnant spirit consciousness surged into Perfected Lord Pang Lan's consciousness. Chapter 961, I think you're tired of living. Chapter 961, I think you're tired of living. Ah! Perfected Lord Pang Lan shuddered and cried out in pain. He hugged his head with both hands and curled his body as though he was enduring immense pain. The crowd was astonished. If everybody was shocked when Perfected Lord Pang Lan released the spirit consciousness attack, Su Zimo's counterattack was absolutely mind-blowing. Perfected Lord Pang Lan had cultivated for hundreds of years and was half a step into the void reversion realm. It was only logical for his cultivation to be at this level. However, Su Zimo was only slightly older than 100 years old and was at late-stage nascent soul realm. How could his essence spirit be so terrifying? In fact, his essence spirit was so condensed that it was able to release spirit consciousness attacks. What was even more frightening was that Perfected Lord Pang Lan was clearly defeated in that clash of spirit consciousnesses. In reality, the moment Su Zimo entered nascent soul realm, he was already able to release spirit consciousness attacks by fusing his two essence spirits together. By the time he cultivated to late-stage nascent soul, his two essence spirits were pure and condensed enough on their own without fusion. The black-haired essence spirit cultivated two top-tier immortal and Buddhist cultivation techniques. Not only that, there was also the nourishment of the creation green lotus. To Su Zimo, it was only normal that his spirit consciousness attack could suppress Perfected Lord Pang Lan's spirit consciousness. Perfected Lord Pang Lan had a splitting headache as wounds appeared on his essence spirit. Essence spirit injuries were the hardest to heal from. Suddenly, he felt a strong sense of regret. He struggled to stand up. Unfortunately, Su Zimo would not give him another chance. After the spirit consciousness attack, Su Zimo's figure flashed and arrived before Perfected Lord Pang Lan in the blink of an eye. He extended his finger and tapped on the latter's glabella gently. Poof! A bloody hole appeared on Perfected Lord Pang Lan's glabella. His essence spirit was completely destroyed. Another monster incarnate had died. The number one of the phenomenon ranking 400 years ago, an existence that was half a step into the void reversion realm, died right in front of countless cultivators. He died even faster than Yi Tiancheng. That was the danger of a clash of spirit consciousnesses. Even if one's essence spirit was not destroyed at the first moment, it was easy for them to be shaken. They would not be able to recover in time and their opponents might seize the momentum to kill them. Therefore, most of the time, cultivators would fight and kill one another. It was rare for them to use spirit consciousness attacks or essence spirit secret skills right away. This was equivalent to a life and death battle that happened in an instant. Nobody was confident of winning. Furthermore, even if they won, if their essence spirits were injured in the process, it would lead to endless trouble. It was not worth it at all. Yi Tiancheng and Perfected Lord Pang Lan, 2 paragons and 2 former number 1 of the phenomenon ranking, fell one after another. Suddenly, a strange killing intent filled the mystic courtyard. The void reversions of Chaos Essence Sect, Heavenly Dipper Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Sword Sect and Hellfire Hall exchanged glances. Although the 5 void reversions were expressionless, their spirit consciousnesses were communicating secretly. Waving his hand, Su Zimo put away the mystic magnet mountain and the 49 perfected Lord flying swords that were suppressed beneath. Unfortunately, he did not manage to obtain perfected Lord Pang Lan and Yi Tiancheng's storage bags. The mysterious stone hammer of Yi Tiancheng was also put away by Chaos Essence Sect cultivators long ago. However, perfected Lord Pang Lan's connate perfected Lord flying sword did land in Su Zimo's hands. Without hesitation, Su Zimo gave the flying sword to Ji Qingtian. He had the creation green lotus and dermic weapons like the flying sword would not increase his combat strength by much, he might as well give it to his best friend. This scene made many nascent souls envious once again. In that short period of time, Su Zimo had given out 2 connate perfected Lord dermic weapons and a supreme grade mystic tea. Any one of them would cause one's eyes to turn red and many cultivators would fight over it. Ji Qingtian knew that the reason why he was hunted down by Dian several dozen years ago and survived barely was because of his relationship with Su Zimo. This was something that Su Zimo felt guilty about. Now that Su Zimo was back, he wanted to make up for the guilt he felt using this connate dermic weapon. Ji Qingtian pondered for a moment and did not decline. Su Zimo's gaze shifted to a monk of formless monastery and said indifferently, "Hand it over." It was a void reversion monk with the Dao title Xian Ming. The crowd was stunned. Everyone could not understand why Su Zimo would suddenly turn towards the Buddhist sections. Right from the beginning, the Buddhist monks did nothing. Could it be that Su Zimo was already arrogant to the point where he looked down on everyone? Monk Xian Ming lowered his gaze and asked without looking at Su Zimo, "Patron Su, what are you talking about? Even within the Buddhist sects, there are monks as sleazy as you?" Su Zimo sneered coldly with a mocking gaze. "Patron, watch your words. Who are you talking about? How has our formless monastery offended you?" Many monks of formless monastery glared at him. Su Zimo's expression turned cold as he glared at Monk Xian Ming and asked again, "Monk, does that mean that you want to play dumb with me? Please explain, Patron Su." Monk Xian Ming was still expressionless and calm. Well. Su Zimo nodded. "Since you want to pretend, I'll let you suffer. Break it." Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he hollered. "Xing!" The group of cultivators were still confused and only heard the sound of clothes tearing. However, they saw green rays of light burst forth from Monk Xian Ming's robes. A green lotus platform appeared and broke out of Monk Xian Ming's storage bag. The creation green lotus. Everyone opened their mouths slightly as realization dawned on them. During the battle between Su Zimo and Yi Tiancheng earlier on, the creation green lotus collided against the mysterious stone hammer. The creation green lotus fell into the crowd, but before Su Zimo could retrieve it, Monk Xian Ming of Formless Monastery had hidden it. Poof! The creation green lotus spun slowly and caused wounds to appear on Monk Xian Ming's waist as blood flowed. In the blink of an eye, his robes were stained. Monk Xian Ming grunted and took half a step back. How could his body withstand the power of the creation green lotus? The creation green lotus wanted to tear through the air, but Monk Xian Ming hurriedly took out a wooden fish to suppress it. He channeled his dermic powers and injected them into the wooden fish. The wooden fish shone brightly and pinned the creation green lotus in midair, rendering it immobile. "Monk, do you think that I wouldn't be able to sense it because you placed a seal on your storage bag?" Su Zimo sneered. "The creation green lotus is my destiny dermic weapon and has been nurtured for 100 years. How can a monk with evil intentions like you lay a finger on it?" When Monk Xian Ming saw that he could no longer continue with his disguise, he decided to throw caution to the wind and said in a deep voice, "Junior, don't slander me. The creation green lotus is a sacred item of the Buddhist monasteries to begin with. Since it has reappeared, it should be returned to its owner, to our Buddhist sects." He was being unreasonable. Dao Bing Yuding frowned and was about to step in to negotiate when Su Zimo's expression darkened completely. He recalled Demonist Ji's words about the difference between immortals and fiends. Those of the fiends' sects would fight for anything openly. As for the cultivators of the immortal sects, they would fight for it as well. However, they would do it in secret by casting accusations upon those from the fiend sections. Right now, not only did this Buddhist monk Xian Ming want to snatch his creation green lotus, he was even acting completely righteous about it. "How dare you try to snatch something of mine?" Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he said slowly, "I think you're tired of living." Chapter 962, Fatal Trap. Chapter 962, Fatal Trap. The cultivators were moved. Was he threatening a void reversion? After killing Yi Tiancheng and perfected Lord Pang Lan consecutively, Su Zimo's combat strength had already surpassed all the nascent soul paragons present. But now, the fact that Su Zimo said something like that to a void reversion of the Buddhist sects shocked everyone. Isn't Su Zimo way too arrogant? He's actually threatening a void reversion. He must be getting cocky after killing 2 paragons in succession. He's just overestimating himself at this point. Normally, given Su Zimo's combat strength, he would definitely be able to challenge void reversions across major realms. However, this is the successor of Formless Monastery of the Buddhist monasteries and not an ordinary void reversion. He has just gone through 2 major battles and has expended a lot of stamina and mental strength. If he still dares to provoke a void reversion at this moment, he's asking to be humiliated. Boom! The ground shook. Just as the crowd was in doubt, Su Zimo had already attacked. He was not threatening the void reversion, he chose to attack the latter directly. Su Zimo's feet landed on the ground and he charged forward. There was a sonic boom behind him and he arrived before monk Xian Ming in the blink of an eye. "Let go." Su Zimo flipped his palm and smashed down on the head of monk Xian Ming with a terrifying might, covering the skies. Audacious. Back down. Among the 6 Buddhist monasteries, the 3 major monasteries of the Middle Continent had arrived and were standing together. When Hollow Monastery and Wisdom Monastery saw monk Xian Ming being attacked, they shouted without hesitation and struck one after another. Hollow Finger. Wisdom Palm. There was a finger attack and palm strike. Formless Dermic Seal. Monk Xian Ming harumphed coldly. Unhurriedly, he conjured a dermic seal with both hands and smashed it towards Su Zimo. The 3 void reversion monks retaliated at the same time with terrifying strength and torrential dermic powers. It was a frightening sight. Fufu, Su Zimo was the one who was courting death. He can't blame anyone. To think that he would dare to take the initiative against a void reversion. Fufu, he truly thinks too highly of himself and doesn't take the heroes of the world seriously. He probably did not expect himself to be attacked by 3 void reversions. Some shook their heads, some sneered, some gloated and some were worried. "Master, what are you waiting for?" Ling Ro turned around and questioned Dao Lord Lan Yu loudly. Dao Lord Lan Yu's gaze flickered. Just as she was about to raise her hand, she pondered for a moment and closed her eyes. In the end, she did not interfere. This meant that Dao Lord Lan Yu had tacitly agreed to the 3 void reversions ganging up on Su Zimo. Dao Bing Yuding was quite a distance away from the Buddhist monasteries and it was a little too late for him to help. Right then, the situation on the battlefield changed. Dao Bing Chi Gai of Zephyr Thunder Palace as well as the void reversions of Chaos Essence Sect, Sword Sect, Hellfire Hall and Heavenly Dipper Sect who were watching the battle from not far away rose at the same time. The 5 void reversions remained silent with cold expressions as beams of light shone from their glabella. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying spirit consciousness burst forth, condensing into sabers, swords, and spears in midair before smashing towards Su Zimo. Instantly, the void trembled and ripples appeared one after another. Pust. The crowd's expressions changed when they saw that. The 5 void reversions attacked at the same time. Furthermore, they did not test the waters by getting close to Su Zimo or using any dermic arts. Instead, they released Essence Spirit secret skills right away. A fatal trap. The void reversions had used Essence Spirit secret skills against a nascent soul. Furthermore, 5 void reversions attacked at the same time. This was equivalent to not giving Su Zimo any chance to survive or retaliate. They wanted him dead. It was a fatal trap. This was much more terrifying than the spirit consciousness attack released by perfected Lord Pang Lan earlier on. A single Essence Spirit secret skill was enough to kill perfected Lord Pang Lan's Essence Spirit, let alone 5 at the same time. The timing of the 5 void reversions was perfect. They had waited for this opportunity for a long time. That was because there were 3 void reversions of the Buddhist monasteries attacking Su Zimo, attracting his full attention. To be more precise, this was a hopeless situation. 8 void reversions working together to kill a nascent soul was something that had never happened in history. Fairy Luo Shui of Snowdrift Valley was enraged and stood up with a shocked expression. By now, it was too late for her to help. The only person who could stop everything was Dao Lord Lan Yu. However, she closed her eyes at that moment. The crowd fell silent at the sight of that. So what if he was the number 1 perfected lord? It was just as Dao Lord Lan Yu had said, if one's edge was too sharp, it was easy to die. The thought of the fact that 3 people who were on the top of the phenomenon rankings would die here today was rather ironical. However, who would have thought that the 1,000 Crane Tea Party that was held once every 1,000 years would become the burial ground of these monster incarnates? Just as everyone was lamenting internally, Su Zimo, who was in the center of the storm, retracted his palm. His gaze was as deep as the sea and he was frighteningly calm. His black hair fluttered without wind. In the blink of an eye, strands of scarlet hair were mixed in between his black hair. Su Zimo's eyes turned scarlet and black respectively. Crackle. The sound of bones cracking could be heard from within Su Zimo's body. His body expanded and rose. A shuddering aura of destruction emanated from his body. It was savage and primitive, as though it came from the primordial era. Demonic chi surged and a torrential ferocity engulfed the world. Su Zimo's clothes were torn and scarlet scales appeared on the surface of his skin like metal plates that were burning red. His eyes were filled with killing intent, as though they were the doors and windows to hell. Heavens, what sort of monster is that? Why can't I circulate my bloodline? What bloodline does this person have that's suppressing my bloodline? Is that a dragon? The group of cultivators trembled with endless fear in their eyes. Fairy Luo Shui, Hang Qiuyu, and the others shuddered. Back in Myriad Phenomenon City, they witnessed Su Zimo transforming into a dragon and were extremely shocked. It was also because of his dragonification that Su Zimo was able to kill the god race completely. But now, the Su Zimo before them was even more frightening than the existence who turned into a dragon in Myriad Phenomenon City 100 years ago. Someone's going to die. Almost at the same time, Fairy Luo Shui, Hang Qiuyu, and the others murmured. In Su Zimo's consciousness, the 2 essence spirits had already fused into one. Since the 8 void reversions attacked at the same time, he could not care less and could only fuse his essence spirit to defend against this fatal trap. The attacks of the 5 void reversions from Chaos Essence Sect, Sword Sect, Heavenly Dipper Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace and Hellfire Hall had triggered the killing intent in his heart entirely. Since Dao Lord Lan Yu wanted to feign ignorance, nobody could blame him for going on a massacre. Chapter 963, One Punch. Chapter 963, One Punch. Although the void reversions of Zephyr Thunder Palace, Chaos Essence Sect and the other 3 sects attacked later, Essence Spirit's secret skills were instantaneous and their attacks were the first to arrive. After his dragonification, Su Zimo activated the Mingwang prayer beads right away. Buzz! His left wrist shone with bedazzling golden lights that enveloped his entire body. In the blink of an eye, a shimmering golden barrier appeared around him. An ancient, mysterious Sanskrit appeared. It was flawless and divine. Essence Spirit Dharmic Weapon. The eyes of Dao being Qi Gai and the others focused. Among Dharmic weapons, Essence Spirit Dharmic weapons were the rarest. Furthermore, based on their judgment, the Dharmic weapon on Su Zimo's wrist was of an extremely high grade and was a rare treasure for them. Greed flashed through their eyes at the same time. Su Zimo had way too many treasures on him. After killing that lad and seizing his treasures, there would definitely be a fierce battle. The creation Green Lotus had already fallen into the hands of the Buddhist monasteries. They had to get their hands on the remaining treasures. Bang! 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 The moment the golden barrier was formed, the spirit consciousness released by the 5 essence spirit secret skills descended. Any later and Su Zimo would have been killed by the 5 spirit consciousnesses. The golden barrier trembled and the Sanskrit dimmed. The 2 different energies froze for a split second and the golden barrier exploded instantaneously. However, the power of the 5 spirit consciousnesses was halved as well. Swoosh! The remnant of the 5 spirit consciousnesses shot into Su Zimo's glabella right away. The 5 void reversions sneered internally when they saw that. So what if he had an essence spirit Dharmic weapon? His cultivation realm was not high enough and he could not unleash the true power of the Dharmic weapon. Furthermore, this was an essence spirit secret skill released by the 5 of them together. Even if the essence spirit Dharmic weapon managed to defend against most of the power, the remnant of the spirit consciousness would be able to enter Su Zimo's consciousness and kill him. 5 spirit consciousnesses barged into Su Zimo's sea of consciousness, creating waves that crashed towards his essence spirit. Although the creation Green Lotus was still in Monk Xianming's hands, the 45 lotus seeds surrounded Su Zimo's essence spirit and had not once left his side. The creation Green Lotus could not defend against the power of spirit consciousnesses. However, the lotus seeds were essence spirit Dharmic weapons. The 45 lotus seeds turned into rays of light that circled around Su Zimo's essence spirit, emitting a terrifying sharp aura. The moment the 5 spirit consciousnesses descended, they were sliced into pieces by the 45 lotus seeds and their power was almost depleted. When the remnant of the spirit consciousness landed on Su Zimo's essence spirit that was covered with dragon scales, it did not cause any ripples and dissipated silently. At the same time, the attacks of the 3 void reversions of the Buddhist monasteries arrived. At that moment, Su Zimo had just defended against 5 spirit consciousness attacks and it was too late for him to raise his hand to defend against the attacks of the 3 void reversion monks. The only possibility was if the 3 void reversions paused for a moment to give him a breather to react. However, that was impossible. The 2 monks of Hollow and Wisdom monasteries sighed internally and revealed pained expressions. They could not help but hold back slightly. However, Monk Xianming of Formless Monastery knew that he was the one in the wrong for snatching away Su Zimo's creation Green Lotus. The only way he could cause the creation Green Lotus to have no owner was by killing Su Zimo. A cold glint flashed through Monk Xianming's eyes as that thought flashed through his mind. The peerless Dharmic seal he conjured with both hands turned even more ferocious. Right then, Su Zimo opened his mouth and let out a deafening roar. Roar! Heaven and earth rumbled. The roar was majestic and powerful, piercing through metal and cracking rocks. It exuded an ancient and boundless aura that contained endless rage, as though it wanted to shatter the stars. This was not a human voice. It was a dragon roar. Everything went silent. The world seemed to have gone silent after the dragon roar. Given Su Zimo's blood qi, the lethality of his dragon roar was extremely terrifying and the first to be struck were the 3 void reversion monks. The 3 of them shuddered as though they were struck by lightning. Their eyes widened and their minds went blank momentarily. The hollow finger and wisdom palm paused momentarily. Monk Xianming's formless Dharmic seal was almost shattered by the roar. Since the three of them were in charge of escorting the nascent soul paragons to this place, their strength was naturally not to be underestimated. If it was any other ordinary void reversion, that roar would have destroyed their souls. However, that brief pause was enough for Su Zimo. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo's blood chi surged and he threw 3 punches at the 3 void reversion monks like lightning. Bang! 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 Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Even void reversion monks could not defend against Su Zimo's body. Furthermore, this was a full channel of his blood chi after his dragonification. The power that was released could only be described as destructive. The hollow finger of Hollow Monastery's monk was shattered by Su Zimo's punch and his entire palm was smashed into pulp. The outcome of the void reversion monk of Wisdom Monastery was almost similar. The moment Wisdom palm descended, it was smashed by Su Zimo's punch and his entire arm was snapped. It was crippled completely. The 2 void reversion monks cried out in pain and their faces turned pale. They fell backwards heavily into the crowd, looking extremely wretched. This was Su Zimo showing mercy. Although he had transformed into a dragon, he had not lost his rationality. Earlier on, the 2 void reversion monks had shown compassion and retracted their strength. Inadvertently, their act of showing mercy saved themselves instead. Although Su Zimo was decisive in killing, he was not bloodthirsty. What he wanted was to be able to do anything he wanted and pay everything an eye for an eye. He only killed those that deserved to be killed. Monk Xian Ming was someone that deserved to be killed. Su Zimo threw out 3 punches in succession. 2 of them went towards the hollow finger and wisdom palm of the 2 monks. However, the 3rd punch landed right on Monk Xian Ming's head. Poof! Monk Xian Ming's head was smashed into pieces and his essence spirit was destroyed. He was shocked by the dragon roar and could not react in time. He was killed by a single punch without any chance of resisting. The crowd was shocked. Instantly, things changed on the battlefield. No one expected that after the attacks of 8 void reversions in unison, 2 of them would be severely injured and 1 of them was dead. How was that possible? The essence spirit's secret skills of 5 void reversions could not even kill this man? How did this person even have strength left to retaliate? It was not only the crowd that was confused, the 5 void reversions of Zephyr Thunder Palace, Chaos Essence Sect and the other 3 sects were equally confused. The 5 of them were shocked by the dragon roar as well, but they snapped out of their stupor before long. Immediately after, the 5 of them were bewildered and their eyes shone with endless confusion. Su Zimo severely injured 2 void reversion monks of Hollow Monastery and Wisdom Monastery with 2 punches and killed Monk Xian Ming with 1 punch. Without stopping, he pushed down with his palm and snatched the creation green lotus back. The 5 of you, hand over your lives. Suddenly, Su Zimo turned around and glared at Dao Bing Chi Gai and the others. He grinned and released a torrential killing intent, resembling a god of massacre that had just walked out from the depths of hell. Chapter 964, A Suffocating Counterattack. Chapter 964, A Suffocating Counterattack. Su Zimo injected dermic powers and tossed the creation green lotus out. The creation green lotus turned into a streak of light and sped towards the void reversion of Chaos Essence Sect, arriving instantly. Boom! In a flash, Su Zimo charged towards Dao Bing Chi Gai and the void reversion of Heavenly Dipper Sect. Everywhere he passed, sand and rocks flew. In midair, Su Zimo condensed a sword finger and touched his glabella gently before pointing in the direction of the void reversion of Sword Sect. Shoo! 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 45 rays of green light shot out from his glabella and pierced towards the void reversion of Sword Sect. Those were the 45 lotus seeds. Everything was released in an instant. At the same time, Su Zimo conjured hand seals and 2 flames of different colors and auras appeared in his palms. A ball of scarlet and a ball of gold. They were the immortal and Buddhist Tao fires. Within his consciousness, his essence spirit was already pushed to its limits. Endless dharmic powers surged into the two Tao flames. Condense. Su Zimo closed in on the two flames and channeled a supreme secret skill, fusing them together to form a dual-colored Tao fire. The Samadhi Tao fire. Nangong Ling, Lu Hanyan and Ru Xian widened their eyes in shock. There were very few cultivators in the entire mystic courtyard who could recognize that dharmic art. The three of them were legacy disciples of Tao Lord Scarlet Star and were naturally cultivating the Samadhi Tao fire as well. However, they had yet to succeed. To them, the secret skill that Su Zimo was using was the Samadhi Tao fire itself. However, there was still a difference from the Samadhi Tao fire in their impression. The biggest difference was that the Samadhi Tao fire had 3 balls of flames. However, Su Zimo only condensed 2 balls of flames. Furthermore, the Samadhi Tao flames they cultivated were of the same color and were scarlet without any golden flames. The thing that truly shocked and confused them was the fact that although there were only 2 balls of flames in Su Zimo's palms, the Tao fire that was formed from the fusion of the 2 Tao flames seemed to be even more terrifying than the Samadhi Tao fire they knew. The 3 of them did not know that the nature of the Samadhi Tao fire had completely changed in Su Zimo's hands. The original meaning of Samadhi was the essence, chi, and spirit Samadhi. However, when it came to Su Zimo, he interpreted it as the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Samadhi. At his level of comprehension, how could the power of that dharmic art not increase? The original Samadhi Tao fire was the top dharmic art of the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra and was also one of Tao Lord Extreme Fire's trump cards. Su Zimo's Samadhi Tao fire raised the dharmic art to a brand new level. No one had witnessed its might before, nor could they ever imagine what it was like. Therefore, even though Su Zimo did not condense a true Samadhi Tao fire and merely fused the Tao fire of the immortal and Buddhist sects together, its might was still terrifying. Go! Su Zimo hollered softly. The ball of Dviati Tao fire floated and pushed towards the void reversion of Hellfire Hall. At that moment, Su Zimo had already arrived before Tao being Chi Gai and the void reversion of Heavenly Dipper sect. He extended his palm and enveloped both of them. It was absolutely terrifying. All the cultivators widened their eyes in shock. Initially, Tao being Yuding wanted to rush over to help. However, at that moment, he realized that he did not know where to start. Initially, Fairy Luo Shui stood up and wanted to help Su Zimo as well. However, at that moment, she sat back down slowly. No one could imagine that Su Zimo, a nascent soul, would be able to break through such a deadly trap. Furthermore, his counterattack was so ferocious and frightening that it was suffocating. After severely injuring 2 void reversion monks and killing monk Xian Ming, Su Zimo's attacked single-handedly against 5 people right away. All 5 void reversions were within his attack range. That was the boldness of the number 1 perfected Lord. That was the means of the number 1 perfected Lord. There were no attacks or solo fights. Since they wanted to fight, none of the 5 void reversions could escape. The first person he came into contact with was the void reversion of Chaos Essence Sect. The void reversion of Chaos Essence Sect did not dare to be careless when he saw the creation Green Lotus approaching. He swiped his storage bag and summoned a gigantic silver shield in front of him. After injecting dharmic powers, the shield's aura surged. Whoosh! 4 bedazzling lights shone on the silver shield. It was a supreme-grade Tao being dharmic weapon. According to his plan, he would first defend against the attack of the creation Green Lotus, and it would be best if he could retrieve it before counterattacking. However, he had truly underestimated the creation Green Lotus and Su Zimo's strength. This was a grade 5 creation Green Lotus that was comparable to a Khanate Tao being dharmic weapon. His shield could not defend against it at all. Furthermore, the creation Green Lotus was Su Zimo's destiny dharmic weapon and was even more powerful. Su Zimo had thrown it out with all his might. Its burst power was no different from a meteor crashing. Boom! The creation Green Lotus collided with the silver shield and let out a deafening bang. Chaos Essence Sect's void reversion's expression changed starkly. Sensing the power of the collision, he suddenly realized that something was amiss. Unfortunately, it was too late. With almost no pause in between, the silver shield exploded and the creation green lotus charged forward, charging towards the void reversion of Chaos Essence Sect. Ah! He only had time to shout before his head was crushed by the creation green lotus. Before his essence spirit could escape, it was destroyed on the spot. If he had chosen to use his destiny dermic weapon to defend against that attack with all his might, he might have had a chance to survive. Unfortunately, not only did he underestimate the creation green lotus, he also underestimated Su Zimo. He was still thinking of counterattacking, but he did not know that the scythe of the Reaper was already hovering around his neck. He was killed by a single move. Chaos Essence Sect's void reversion had just died and Su Zimo's other attack had already arrived. The 45 lotus seeds arrived before the void reversion of Sword Sect densely and sealed off all his escape routes. The void reversion of Sword Sect wanted to throw out a few talismans to defend against the attack of the lotus seeds. However, he caught sight of Chaos Essence Sect's void reversion from the corner of his eye and was shocked. Instantly, the void reversion of Sword Sect had a grim expression and did not dare to be careless. As he tore apart a few defensive talismans, he summoned his destiny dermic weapon right away. Buzz! Relying on the sword in his hands, its blade quivered with a buzzing sound that grew increasingly clear. It was a perfect Dao being dermic weapon. The sword had followed him for many years and had been tempered by his essence spirit for thousands of years. It was extremely powerful. He believed that he would be able to defend against the attack of the actual creation green lotus, let alone the 45 lotus seeds. He did not make any moves and merely flicked his wrist gently. Beams of bright and cold sword lights burst forth and formed sword chi barriers around him. Cling! Clang! The sword chi barrier was impenetrable and blocked all 45 lotus seeds outside. Everyone's eyes lit up. As expected of a sword sect cultivator. That sword technique was truly peerless. Su Zimo's killing move was dispelled with a single slash. Right then, Hang Qiuyu seemed to have sensed something and his pupils constricted as he exclaimed, "Senior brother, watch out." Chapter 965, Complete Annihilation. Chapter 965, Complete Annihilation. Senior brother, watch out. The void reversion of Sword Sect scoffed internally when he heard Hang Qiuyu's warning. Relying on the advantage of his destiny dermic weapon and the might of his Sect's sword art, he had already blocked all 45 lotus seeds. The few talismans that he tore apart were unnecessary. What was there to be careful about? The moment he thought of that, his expression changed. Something was not right. Although the 45 lotus seeds were cut down, they shone with a green glow that penetrated his sword chi barrier in the defense of his talisman, surging into his consciousness. The lotus seeds were essence spirit dermic weapons. Although the sword light talisman could block the main body of the lotus seeds, it could not block the killing power of the spirit consciousness attack released by them. By the time the void reversion of Sword Sect noticed it, it was already too late. Poof! 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 45 rays of light surged into his consciousness and pierced through his essence spirit like a volley of arrows. Clang! His sword fell and the talismans dissipated. The void reversion of Sword Sect's eyes were unfocused and there were no wounds on his body. However, there was no life within him and he collapsed to the ground. This was a killing move that targeted the essence spirit. Although he looked uninjured on the surface, his essence spirit was gone and he was dead. Many Sword Sect cultivators were shocked and they saw the void reversion fall and retreated with pale faces. Only Hang Qiuyu stood at the front with a conflicted expression and sighed deeply. In some ways, he was lucky. He had witnessed Su Zimo's methods before. Therefore, he was fearful and would not try to challenge that person again. However, many people had not seen it before. Therefore, many people wanted to kill the monster incarnate. However, none of them had seen how many corpses were piled beneath the feet of this monster incarnate. Which of those corpses were not paragons when they were alive? None of them would ever be able to experience that suffocating fear if they had not exchanged blows with him personally. Hang Qiuyu no longer wanted to experience it. He sighed and put away the corpse of the void reversion. The only thing he could do was not take revenge but return to the sect and bury it properly. That was all. On the battlefield. The entire process seemed very slow upon narration, but in fact, it occurred in the split of a moment. With 2 void reversions dead, Su Zimo's Dviati Dao fire had already arrived before the void reversion of Hellfire Hall. He hesitated for a moment. When he saw that Su Zimo had conjured his Dao fire and attacked him, his first reaction was disdain. Although he was afraid of Su Zimo's physique and was afraid of melee combat, he was not afraid of other methods of combat. After all, the difference between their essence spirits was a major cultivation realm and dermic powers was multiple times. There was no way to make up for that difference. Therefore, he conjured a dermic art and was prepared to retaliate with hellfire. However, right after, he saw 2 void reversions of Chaos Essence Sect and Sword Sect perish. That shocked him and he almost turned to flee. Before long, he calmed down. The 2 void reversions of Chaos Essence Sect and Sword Sect died mainly because of the power of the creation Green Lotus. But now, he had no reason to fear this fire dermic art. Furthermore, he had already conjured his dermic art in front of everyone. If he were to turn and flee, he would definitely become a laughing stock. At that thought, he made the worst decision of his life. It was also his final decision. How dare you show off your insignificant skills? The void reversion of Hellfire Hall sneered and conjured a ball of hellfire with both hands. It emitted a sinister and cold aura and charged towards the incoming Dao fire. There was no intense collision as expected. Shing! Almost instantly, his hellfire extinguished as though it had encountered a terrifying power. After Su Zimo's 2 essence spirits fused, his essence spirit was no weaker than any void reversion or even stronger. The Dao fire of the Buddhist monasteries alone was enough to suppress the hellfire. Furthermore, it was a Dviati Dao fire that was fused together with the immortal and Buddhist Daos. It was almost a complete suppression. Swoosh! In the widened eyes of the void reversion of Hellfire Hall, the dual-colored Dao fire pushed through everything and engulfed him in flames. Ah! A hysterical shriek sounded from the flames. After a few breaths, there was no sound. The flames gradually extinguished and dust fell. That might be the only trace left behind by the void reversion of Hellfire Hall. The power of the Dviati Dao fire was so terrifying that it burned a void reversion into ashes. In the blink of an eye, 3 out of the 5 void reversions were dead. The entire process was so short that Su Zimo had already arrived before Dao being Qi Gai and the void reversion of Heavenly Dipper Sect. The moment he attacked, the 2 of them were enveloped. The 2 of them were about to join forces to hold out for a moment when they realized that 3 void reversions were already dead. That scene shocked both of them. Before they attacked, they were already certain that they could not fight Su Zimo in close combat. Right now, the 2 of them were merely inches away from Su Zimo. That was equivalent to half a step into the gates of hell. Ah! The void reversion of Heavenly Dipper Sect roared and prepared to fight to the death. Su Zimo turned his head slightly and stared at him. Suddenly, his right eye turned white and emitted a faint glow. It was extremely strange. The void reversion of Heavenly Dipper Sect suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. Before he could react, a blinding beam of light shot out from Su Zimo's right eye and entered his head with a scorching aura. All his energy was focused on defending against Su Zimo's melee attacks. He did not expect such a change. Poof! The void reversion of Heavenly Dipper Sect's head was penetrated by the blazing beam and his essence spirit was destroyed. He couldn't have been any more dead. Another person was killed by the Illumination Dragon Eye. In the blink of an eye, Dao being Qi Gai was the only one left. When he sensed Su Zimo's palm descending from above and knew that even the void reversion of Heavenly Dipper Sect who was beside him was dead, he was scared out of his wits. Even if he had 500 kilograms of strength, he could not muster a single bit of it at the moment. Dao being Qi Gai's mind went blank. leaving only a strong desire to survive. His eyes were filled with horror as he shouted instinctively. "Perfected Lord, please spare me." Against Su Zimo, he was scared out of his wits. Swoosh! The palm that seemed like it could destroy the world suddenly stopped. It hovered above his head motionlessly. When the cultivators saw that, they felt an unimaginable shock. This was a void reversion of Zephyr Thunder Palace. To think that he would end up begging for mercy under the palm of a nascent soul. Su Zimo looked at that person quietly with an indifferent expression and curled his lips slightly, asking in a mocking manner, "Spare you?" Dao Bing Chi Gai's face was pale as he nodded repeatedly. His lips quivered when he sensed the killing intent Su Zimo emanated and the bloodline that seemed as though it originated from the primordial era. He could no longer speak. "It's too late." Su Zimo sighed and slapped down. Piak. Dao Bing Chi Gai's expression froze and his eyes widened. Streaks of blood appeared on his face. His head was smashed by that palm. His essence spirit was shattered and he died on the spot. In the blink of an eye, all 5 void reversions were killed without exception. Chapter 966, Lan Yu's Attitude. Chapter 966, Lan Yu's Attitude. The massive mystic courtyard went completely silent. The group of cultivators looked at the battlefield in a daze and the tall and terrifying figure on the battlefield, forgetting to breathe for a moment. Who would have believed such an outcome if they had not witnessed it personally? The nascent soul paragon of Snowdrift Valley, Ling Bai, was dumbfounded and his eyes were filled with shock. Fairy Luo Shue's words were the only thing that remained in his mind. Since he is here now, unless a Dharma characteristic shows up at the 1,000 Crane Tea Party, no one else will be a threat to him. It was a prophecy. The encirclement of 8 void reversions was easily destroyed by this person. 6 of them died and 2 of them were severely injured. That was the true number 1 perfected lord. Nangong Ling, Lu Hanyan and Ru Xian suddenly thought of something. Previously, they met with danger outside Wind Cloud City and were abducted by a Dharma characteristic of Hellfire Hall along with 7 void reversions. However, they managed to return safe and sound later on. Initially, the 3 of them thought that it was done by some supreme expert. By the looks of it, that peerless expert was most likely Su Zimo. That Su Zimo is truly a fiend demon. That's right, he is completely exposed and the truth can't be hidden any longer. What fiend demon is that? Why didn't the demon revealing mirror reflect his true form? Gradually, the crowd broke into hushed discussions. The group of cultivators instinctively looked towards the sect master of Thousand Crane Sect, Dao Lord Lan Yu. At that moment, Dao Lord Lan Yu's expression was extremely terrible. Earlier on, when the 8 void reversions attacked at the same time, she chose to ignore them and watch with folded arms. In fact, she even closed her eyes. She had a good plan. Su Zimo had already offended many super sects and at the most, he was backed by the declining 100 Refinement Sect. If 100 Refinement Sect could not even protect themselves, how could they protect Su Zimo? Even if Su Zimo were to die here, it would be fine. No one would cause trouble for her or Thousand Crane Sect. That way, she would be able to account for the deaths of Yi Tiancheng, perfected Lord Panglan and the others. However, not long after she closed her eyes, she heard an ancient howl that shook the world. Even her mind was shaken. Dragon roar? Dao Lord Lan Yu froze for a moment, unable to react. Why was there a dragon roar in the mystic courtyard? Instinctively, she opened her eyes and saw that 2 void reversions of the Buddhist monasteries were severely injured and monk Xian Ming was dead. The void reversions of Chaos Essence Sect, Sword Sect and Hellfire Hall had just died as well. A tall and strong figure with a terrifying aura and scarlet scales that covered his body charged towards Dao Bing Chi Gai and the void reversion of Zephyr Thunder Palace. Dragon race? Dao Lord Lan Yu's heart skipped a beat. Although the tall figure before her did not take on the form of a dragon, the aura he exuded was no different from that of a dragon. With that delay, the void reversion of Sword Sect was killed by the Illumination Dragon Eye. Immediately after, Dao Bing Chi Gai was killed by that person as well. It was only then that Dao Lord Lan Yu realized that the tall figure with dragon scales and red-black eyes was Su Zimo. Everything was too late. While her eyes were closed, the battle was over and the dust was settled. Dao Lord Lan Yu stood up slowly and exuded an extremely powerful aura, suppressing everything before summoning the demon-revealing mirror. Whoosh! A beam of light shone down and enveloped Su Zimo. With a single thought, Su Zimo separated his two essence spirits and hid his scarlet-haired Een spirit. It was still within his consciousness. Crackle. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had already returned to normal, turning into that handsome cultivator with clear, pitch-black eyes with refined features. Even under the cover of the demon-revealing mirror, his expression was indifferent. This change made Dao Lord Lan Yu feel like she was being toyed with. Her expression darkened completely. Su Zimo, I don't care if you're a human or a demon. Since you dare to start a massacre at the Thousand Crane Tea Party, it's equivalent to Sect Master. Before Dao Lord Lan Yu could finish, she was interrupted by Su Zimo. All the cultivators present witnessed the reason why I killed them. Everyone can naturally come to an agreement of whether it was right or wrong. Pausing for a moment, Su Zimo continued, in addition, this conflict could have been avoided. Since someone chose to ignore it and stand by idly, don't blame me for starting a massacre. Are you accusing me? Dao Lord Lan Yu's gaze turned cold as she asked murderously. Her patience had been exhausted. It was a complete failure for the Thousand Crane Tea Party to develop to this point. As for the root of the failure, it was because of a single person. It was Su Zimo who was right before her. I can't say that I'm accusing you. However, I do have something that I wish to discuss with you, Sect Master. Glancing at Leng Ro beside him, Su Zimo nodded before raising his voice. Sect Master Lan Yu, it's fine if you want to make use of the marriage alliance to befriend Chaos Essence Sect and obtain their support. However, you should at least respect Leng Ro's intentions. What did you say? Feeling guilty, Dao Lord Lan Yu hollered. This was not a glorious affair and everyone knew what was going on. However, it was another matter exposing it in public. None of the cultivators present are fools. Which of them can't tell what you're trying to do? Su Zimo replied indifferently, Leng Ro is a disciple of Thousand Crane's sect and it's not wrong for her to join you. However, you have no right to decide her future. You're pushing her into a pit of fire. Leng Ro looked at Su Zimo and the coldness in her eyes gradually dissipated. She knew that Su Zimo was speaking up for her. Those were her heartfelt words, but she did not dare to say them. Leng Ro did not dare to imagine what her outcome would be without Su Zimo. Su Zimo shook his head and smiled mockingly. Furthermore, the facts have proven that you have poor judgment. Yi Tiancheng isn't some incredible monster incarnate either. I've already killed him. The reason why you chose Chaos Essence Sect was because of the two paragons that rose to power in this generation. Now, one of them is dead. The other won't get to live for long either. Su Zimo, let's see how long more you can be arrogant. A perfected lord of Chaos Essence Sect stood out and said deeply. Sect Master Lan Yu, Su Zimo is no different from a fiend demon. He massacred human cultivators wantonly at the Thousand Crane Tea Party. If you can't account to us for this, our few immortal sects won't let this go lightly. A perfected lord of Sword Sect mustered his courage and shouted, I've already released a messenger crane. Once Sword Sect receives the news, a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord will definitely descend personally. At that time, let's see how your Thousand Cranes sect is going to explain things. That's right. A perfected lord of Heavenly Dipper sect grit his teeth. Dharma characteristic experts from our sect will rush over immediately as well. No, Master. Leng Ro said hurriedly, there's nothing unusual about Su Zimo under the demon-revealing mirror. He's a human. Perhaps it was just a secret skill that he cultivated earlier on. Furthermore, it's not his fault at all. Fairy Luo Shui stood out as well and cupped her fists. Sect Master Lan Yu, don't forget that 100 years ago in Myriad Phenomenon City, Thousand Cranes Sect owed Su Zimo a huge favor. Dao Lord Lan Yu's gaze was cold and she said nothing. The crowd turned to look at her, waiting for her attitude. Her attitude would determine Su Zimo's life and death. Chapter 967, Uncle Master, I'm late. Chapter 967, Uncle Master, I'm late. Dao Lord Lan Yu was expressionless. There were so many people who died at the Thousand Crane Tea Party this time round, and each of them was more influential than the last. Even 7 of the Void Reversions died. There was no way she could escape responsibility. If this was not handled right, Thousand Cranes Sect would definitely be implicated. However, Thousand Cranes Sect was indeed indebted to Su Zimo. If she were to kill Su Zimo here right now, Thousand Cranes Sect would definitely be labeled as ungrateful and incur countless criticism. After pondering for a long time, Dao Lord Lan Yu made up her mind. Su Zimo, if not for the fact that you've done Thousand Cranes Sect a favor in the past, I'll definitely kill you right here today. Dao Lord Lan Yu's voice was cold. However, Ling Ro, Little Fatty and the others were delighted when they heard that. From what she said, it seemed like Dao Lord Lan Yu was not going to lay her hands on Su Zimo. Pausing for a moment, Dao Lord Lan Yu changed the topic. However, you've caused a calamity today. Even Thousand Cranes Sect can't protect you. I reminded you repeatedly to restrain your sharpness, but you refused to listen. You can't blame others. Su Zimo's eyes flashed with mockery as he said indifferently, there's no need to beat around the bush, Sect Master. Just speak your mind. Dao Lord Lan Yu took a deep breath and said calmly, I won't kill you, but you can't leave Thousand Cranes Sect either. Stay here as a guest. A commotion broke out in the crowd. That's a heartless move. That's way too ruthless. Although she did not attack Su Zimo on the surface, he's still going to die once the Dharma characteristic experts of Chaos Essence Sect, Sword Sect and Heavenly Dipper Sect arrive. Su Zimo won't be able to escape death if he's held back in this place. With that, Thousand Cranes Sect will be accountable to Chaos Essence Sect and the other immortal sections. Furthermore, the most important thing is that Dao Lord Lan Yu did not attack Su Zimo and will not be labeled as ungrateful. She's using a borrowed knife to kill him. None of the cultivators present were fools to be able to cultivate to the nascent soul realm. They quickly understood what Dao Lord Lan Yu was thinking and discussed softly. Fufu. Su Zimo chuckled and asked instead, why? You want to detain me in Thousand Cranes Sect? Junior, don't be ungrateful. Dao Lord Lan Yu said indifferently, as the Sect Master, I'm cordially inviting you to stay in Thousand Cranes Sect for a few days. Furthermore, you're best friends with Ling Ro. Since you haven't seen each other for 100 years, you must have a lot to say. I'll grant you your wish. Master. Shut up. Ling Ro was interrupted by a glare from Dao Lord Lan Yu the moment she spoke. How self-righteous. A mocking look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes as he sneered, Dao Lord Lan Yu, you don't carry a single trace of righteousness and heroic aura of the immortal sections. On the other hand, you've mastered the art of hypocrisy and craftiness completely. Su Zimo retracted his smile and asked slowly, what if I insist on leaving? Then don't blame me for being impolite and suppressing you here. Dao Lord Lan Yu said coldly, Junior, since I've already said that, I advise you to behave yourself and suffer less. The pressure of a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord descended slowly and enveloped the entire mystic courtyard. All the nascent souls present felt as though they were carrying a massive mountain and could not move at all. Ha 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 ha. Su Zimo laughed into the skies. Even against the might of a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord, he was still fearless as he shouted, Lan Yu, listen up. Although I can't defeat you, you're not enough to stop me if I want to leave. His heroic attitude was torrential. Against a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord that was 2 major cultivation realms above them, it was already rare for the nascent souls present to be neither servile nor overbearing. None of the cultivators would even dare to dream of challenging the authority of a Dharma characteristic like Su Zimo. However, Su Zimo was not bragging. Indeed, his combat strength was no match for Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. Back when he killed the Dharma characteristic Tao Lord of Hellfire Hall, it was because the latter was at the end of his lifespan and was about to die. Otherwise, he would not have been able to kill the latter with Baron. Right now, there were 3 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords in the Mystic Courtyard with exuberant blood chi. They were clearly at their peak. Su Zimo's Baron would possess an almost negligible impact on the 3 Dharma characteristics. However, he had many trump cards. With the combination of his 2 essence spirits and the Mingwang prayer beads, he could temporarily break free from the suppression of Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. Even Dharma characteristic Tao Lords could not stop him if he released his blood escape technique. Junior, I'll teach you a lesson today for your provocation. Tao Lord Lan Yu's gaze turned cold as her glabella shimmered. She was prepared to attack personally. Su Zimo's eyes lit up and his blood escape technique was about to explode. Hold on. Right then, a soft shout sounded from the distant skies, interrupting the tense atmosphere in the Mystic Courtyard. Everyone turned to look. 3 cultivators approached from the horizon and one of them was a middle-aged man who was relatively young. The other 2 cultivators were old men with white hair and beard. Although they looked like they were close to their later years, they were hale and hearty and had rosy cheeks. It's Master. Nangong Ling, Lu Hanyan and Ru Xian's eyes lit up as they exclaimed. Among the 3 cultivators, the middle-aged man was their master, Tao Lord Scarlet Star. They did not recognize the 2 old men beside Tao Lord Scarlet Star. Apart from Tao Lord Scarlet Star, the 2 elders were also at the Dharma characteristic realm. The Dharma characteristics of 100 Refinements Sect has arrived first. Seems like they are here to take Su Zimo away. Fufu, it won't be that easy. Don't forget, we're in the 1,000 Crane Sect. If Tao Lord Lan Yu doesn't agree to it, do you think the 3 Dharma characteristics will be able to take him away just like that? Let's just look on. This is going to be interesting. The cultivators discussed excitedly. In the blink of an eye, Tao Lord Scarlet Star and the 2 old men descended in the Mystic Courtyard. A look of shock flashed through their eyes as they looked at the dilapidated courtyard and the corpses that had yet to be cleaned up. When Tao Lord Scarlet Star caught sight of Yi Tiancheng's corpse, his pupils constricted. However, he calmed down very quickly, as though he was already prepared for the scene before him. What happened next was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. The crowd that was initially quiet exploded. Under countless gazes, Tao Lord Scarlet Star turned around and came before Su Zimo. He bowed slightly and greeted with the mannerisms of a junior, saying softly, "Uncle Master, I'm late." The crowd fell into an uproar. All the cultivators present had more or less heard of Tao Lord Scarlet Star. Even if they had not heard of it, Tao Lord Scarlet Star was a Dharma characteristic expert after all. But now, he was bowing respectfully to a nascent soul. What was going on? The cultivators present were shocked. Even Nangong Ling and the other 2 were stunned. The 3 of them knew that deep in his heart, Tao Lord Scarlet Star did not want to acknowledge Su Zimo as his uncle master. Initially, he could only grit his teeth and agree to it, forcing himself to call Su Zimo Little Uncle Master. Furthermore, in order to save face for Tao Lord Scarlet Star, Su Zimo had once said that Tao Lord Scarlet Star could address him directly by name if there were any outsiders around. To think that Tao Lord Scarlet Star would do such a thing in front of so many factions and the eyes of countless cultivators. Nangong Ling and the other 2 did not see any hint of reluctance on Tao Lord Scarlet Star's face. To be precise, when Tao Lord Scarlet Star learned of Su Zimo's true identity from Tao Lord Extreme Fire, he was more than willing to address the latter as his uncle master. He was respectful towards Su Zimo not because of seniority. It was because the young man before him was worthy of his respect. Chapter 968, Shangguan Zi. Chapter 968, Shangguan Zi. No wonder he's so fearless. So, he has helpers. Dao Lord Lan Yu had a calm expression as she sneered, Scarlet Star, you think that you're able to take him away from me with just the three of you Dharma characteristics? The three of us are enough. Dao Lord Scarlet Star turned around and looked at Dao Lord Lan Yu with a calm voice. Dao Lord Lan Yu sneered once more. This is Thousand Crane Sect. As long as I give the order, all three of you will have to stay here. Girl, you're way too arrogant. Among the three of them, an old man with a walking stick stood out, exuding a dignified aura. Another old man asked in a deep voice, Girl, where's your master? Dao Lord Lan Yu frowned and flicked her sleeves. Who are you guys? Do you think my master is someone you can meet whenever you want? Elder Gu? Right then, the void reversion of the ancient array sect exclaimed in disbelief. Yes. The old man nodded and looked at the void reversion of the ancient array sect. Little monkey, is that you? It's me, it's me. The void reversion nodded humbly and hurried forward to greet with a bow. This person had a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks. Little Monkey was a nickname for him that not many people knew of. Grandpa Go? Right then, Tang Yu of Elixir Yang's sect exclaimed with widened eyes. Tang Yu ran over to take a closer look and could not help but laugh. Grandpa Gu, it's really you. I didn't dare to recognize you at first. Little Tang, how old are you already? Why do you still like to dress up like a boy? The elder with the surname Gu had a doting expression as he chuckled as well. Grandpa Gu, aren't you in seclusion? Why are you here? Tang Yu asked curiously. The elder with the surname Gu retracted his smile and said indifferently, I've been in seclusion for a long time and my bones are a little rusty. It's a good time for me to come out for a walk and meet an old friend. Dao Lord Lan Yu frowned slightly. For some reason, she suddenly felt uneasy. Dao Lord Scarlet Star raised his voice. Lan Yu, may I ask where Senior Shangguan is? I told you, my master is in seclusion. Dao Lord Lan Yu said coldly. Dao Lord Scarlet Star harumphed. Lan Yu, I arrived before this tea party began because I had something to discuss with Senior Shangguan. However, you rejected me outright. What are your intentions? It was only then that Su Zimo, Nan Gongling and the others realized that Dao Lord Scarlet Star had already visited Thousand Cranes Sect a few days ago. However, he did not manage to meet the person he wanted to and returned empty-handed. I'm the sect master of Thousand Cranes Sect. I can make the decision for everything here. Dao Lord Lan Yu's gaze flickered as her voice turned colder. There was a hint of anger in her tone that could be released at any moment. Elder Gu, who was leaning on his walking stick, said slowly, Girl, tell Shangguan that her old friends from Elixir Yang's sect and Ancient Array sect are here to visit and she will come out of seclusion. Old friends? Foo-foo. Dao Lord Lan Yu sneered, pardon me for being blunt. I've seen all of Master's old friends, but I've never seen the two of you. We've known your master for thousands of years. At that time, you weren't even around yet. Elder Gu blew his beard impatiently. Dao Lord Lan Yu's expression darkened completely as she said coldly, what a joke. If any random cultivator says that he's an old friend of Master's and wants to meet her, wouldn't Master be annoyed to death? Scarlet Star, I've been extremely tolerant on account that you guys are from the unorthodox groups as well. If you guys continue to push your luck, don't blame me for being merciless. Dao Lord Lan Yu slapped her storage bag and threw a pink spirit crane into the air that turned into a streak of light. A gigantic crane appeared and cried into the skies. A crisp and clear crane cry echoed through Thousand Crane Sect. Leng Ro's expression changed. This was a signal for the Dharma characteristic experts to gather. Apart from those in seclusion, everyone else could see it. Bang! 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 Powerful auras burst forth from all corners of Thousand Cranes Sect as figures rushed towards this area. Before long, dozens of Dharma characteristic Dao lords descended and surrounded the mystic courtyard with unfriendly expressions. The immense pressure reverberated through the entire courtyard, and many nascent souls present no longer dared to speak. Who would have thought that the Thousand Crane Tea Party would end up in such a situation where Dharma characteristic experts were at odds? Right now, both parties were ready to fight at any moment. "Girl, what are you doing?" Elder Gu glared angrily and hollered in rage as he blew his beard. "How dare you try to attack us? Shangguan Zi, why aren't you coming out?" Elder Gu's eyes lit up and his walking stick landed heavily on the ground. Bang! Boom! Boom! Endless lights burst forth from every corner of Thousand Crane's sect and shot into the skies. The terrain of the sect was changing. Light of formation patterns? Su Zimo muttered softly. That was the sign of a massive formation being activated. Dao Lord Lan Yu's expression changed starkly as she exclaimed, "The Sect Protection Formation." Thousand Crane Sect's Sect Protection Formation would definitely not be activated unless it was absolutely necessary. She had not expected that this unassuming old man before her would be able to activate Thousand Crane Sect's Sect Protection Formation through thin air. "I was the one who set up Thousand Crane Sect's Sect Protection Formation personally. How dare you attempt to lay your hands on me today, girl?" Elder Gu hollered with a booming voice. Dozens of Dharma characteristic Dao lords of Thousand Crane Sect stood in midair and exchanged glances, looking hesitant. From the looks of it, the old man had a powerful background and none of them dared to attack rashly. Once the Sect Protection Formation was activated, even those in seclusion would be alarmed. Boom! Right then, a loud bang sounded from the depths of Thousand Crane Sect. A powerful aura burst forth. Against that aura, all the Dharma characteristic Dao lords present were as insignificant as ants. Conjoint body mighty figure. Only someone at the conjoint body realm could release such a terrifying aura. "Who's calling me?" In the blink of an eye, a figure arrived above the mystic courtyard, as though it was one with the world. No one could figure out how the person arrived. It was as though she had appeared out of thin air. It was a woman who looked even younger than Dao Lord Lan Yu. Her black hair fluttered and she was extremely beautiful. Her skin was fair and her eyes were filled with a mighty aura of indifference. "Master." When Dao Lord Lan Yu saw that person, her expression changed and she bowed hurriedly with her head lowered, her eyes filled with endless fear. "Hee, Shangguan, you're still so young." Elder Gu gave a strange chuckle. Shangguan Zi shifted her gaze. When she saw Elder Gu, she smiled and said, "After crossing that step, my lifespan was extended so I naturally seem much younger now." At that point, the crowd no longer had any doubts. The newcomer was a conjoint body mighty figure. Shangguan Zi landed in the courtyard and looked at the two old men. She scolded them jokingly, "Are you two old fools tired of living? Why did you come over to my place to create such a huge ruckus?" Although Shangguan Zi was cursing, her eyes revealed the joy of reuniting with old friends. "Really, if you guys wanted to meet me, all you had to do was inform Lan Yu. Why go to the extent of activating the Sect Protection Formation?" Shangguan Zi shook her head helplessly. Chapter 969, Tea served by the Sect Master. Chapter 969, Tea served by the Sect Master. Upon hearing that, Dao Lord Lan Yu panicked. "Hee, inform Lan Yu?" Elder Gu sneered, "If she doesn't remove our heads, we'll be thanking the gods." "Shangguan, that's quite a poor candidate to be a sect master you've got there." Elder Gu pouted. Shangguan Zi's expression changed slightly. She narrowed his eyes and surveyed her surroundings. Gradually, she noticed something unusual. When she saw the dozens of Dharma characteristic Dao lords around her, her first assumption was that these cultivators of the sect had only rushed over because they were alarmed by the Sect Protection Formation. But now, it seemed like there was more to it. Dao Lord Lan Yu's mind raced as she forced a smile. "Master, I don't know who those two seniors were." Shut up." Shangguan Zi interrupted Dao Lord Lan Yu and turned to look at the two Dharma characteristic Dao Lords behind her. She said indifferently, "Both of you, tell me everything that happened earlier." The two Dharma characteristic Dao Lords looked hesitant as they exchanged glances, seemingly in a dilemma. Shangguan Zi said slowly, "If you hide anything, the sect will punish you accordingly." Both of their hearts skipped a beat. Without hesitation, they recounted everything that happened at the Thousand Crane Tea Party without missing any details. At first, Shangguan Zi even hummed twice. Towards the end, she was already silent and expressionless. However, her gaze turned increasingly cold and Dao Lord Lan Yu who was standing beside her felt her heart skip a beat. This was the first time Dao Lord Scarlet Star, Elder Gu and Elder Gu had heard about everything that happened at the tea party as well, and they were extremely excited. The two old men looked at Su Zimo and nodded from time to time without concealing the admiration in their eyes. Su Zimo lamented internally, judging from the backgrounds of those two old men, they must be experts from thousands of years ago. It's unlikely that Dao Lord Scarlet Star could have summoned them given his status. Could it be? Before long, the two Dharma characteristic Dao Lords recounted the many conflicts that happened during the tea party. After hearing that, Shangguan Zi remained silent for a long time. The atmosphere was extremely tense, like the calm before a storm. Lan Yu. After a while, Shangguan Zi sighed and said word by word coldly, "How dare you?" Dao Lord Lan Yu's heart skipped a beat as she knelt on the ground with a thud. With a horrified expression, she said hurriedly, "Master, let me explain." Shangguan Zi said, "The purpose of the Thousand Crane Tea Party is to invite nascent soul realm paragons from Tianhuang mainland and foster a good relationship with many sections. The only thing Thousand Crane Sect has to do is to be fair. Ask yourself honestly, were your actions even fair?" Dao Lord Lan Yu shuddered and was rendered speechless. Shangguan Zi continued, "You sacrificed your disciple and arranged a marriage with Chaos Essence Sect's cultivators to obtain Chaos Essence Sect support. How can you do something like that? You've really done Thousand Crane Sect proud, eh? There's more." Shangguan Zi pointed at Su Zimo and shouted, "I don't care if this child is a cultivator or a fiend demon. If Thousand Crane Sect is indebted to him, we can't lay our hands on him." "But, what were you doing?" I only wanted him to stay in the sect as a guest." Dao Lord Lan Yu's voice trembled with fear. "Piak." Shangguan Zi waved her hand and slapped Dao Lord Lan Yu heavily on the cheek, interrupting the latter. No matter what, Dao Lord Lan Yu was a sect master. Now that she was punished in such a manner in front of everybody, her reputation in the cultivation world in the future will definitely be tarnished. None of the cultivators present pitied her. Chaos Essence Sect and Sword Sect cultivators blamed her for not attacking in time to suppress Su Zimo. Little Fatty, Ji Qingtian and the others who were on Su Zimo's side would definitely not pity her. Only Leng Ro could not bear it and took half a step forward. She raised her hands slightly, wanting to say something but stopped. Shangguan Zi shook her head and said, "How dare you still try to play games in front of me? It seems like I was wrong about you back then." "Calm down, Shangguan." Elder Gu said, "We're here because we have good news for you." Dao Lord Scarlet Star hurried forward and handed over a letter, saying softly, "This is personally written by a senior of 100 Refinement Sect." "Indeed." Su Zimo muttered to himself internally. As expected, this letter should have been written by Dao Lord Extreme Fire. The two old men before him should have been invited by Dao Lord Extreme Fire as well. To Shangguan Zi only. Shangguan Zi took it casually and her gaze froze when she saw the words on it. This handwriting. Her palm trembled slightly. She seemed to have thought of something and her heart wavered. She opened the letter hurriedly and focused. The first line of the letter read, "Shangguan, I'm still alive and have returned." Upon seeing that, Shangguan Zi's eyes welled up and her vision blurred. If not for the fact that there were too many cultivators present, she would have lost control of her emotions and burst into tears. Many cultivators noticed Shangguan Zi's emotional fluctuation. The crowd could not imagine what was written on the letter that could make a conjoint body mighty figure lose control of her emotions. Is this true? Shangguan Zi turned to look at Elder Gu and Old Man Gu, still unsure. The two old men nodded. Taking a deep breath, Shangguan Zi composed herself and read through the entire letter before putting it away carefully, as if it was something extremely precious. Shangguan Zi turned to look at Su Zimo with a warm gaze. There was no hint of arrogance or dominance from a conjoint body mighty figure as she asked gently, "You're Su Zimo?" "I'm Su Zimo." "Greetings, Senior." Su Zimo hurried forward and bowed. "Your master and I are, yes, we're good friends. There's no need for formalities." Shangguan Zi smiled and waved her sleeves gently, helping Su Zimo up. Shangguan Zi said, "I heard about what happened in Myriad Phenomenon City from your master. Thank you for helping us. Countless paragons were spared and we managed to protect the last bit of dignity of the human race." The cultivators were moved. This was a conjoint body mighty figure. Normally, nobody could even catch sight of them. But now, this conjoint body mighty figure was thanking a nascent soul. It could be seen that the battle 100 years ago was absolutely true. From the start of the Tea Party till now, no one has dared to question your title as the #1 perfected lord. Shangguan Zi said, "Only you are qualified to drink this supreme-grade mystic tea." After saying that, Shangguan Zi waved her hand gently and the remaining tender leaf on the top of the mystic tea tree fell into the teacup. Thereafter, she injected boiling spring water and a steaming cup of fragrant tea was ready. "Lan Yu, serve the tea." Shangguan Zi placed the teacup on Dao Lord Lan Yu's palm and said calmly. At that moment, Dao Lord Lan Yu's expression was extremely terrible. As the sect master of Thousand Cranes Sect, she now had to offer tea to a nascent soul. This was a humiliation that she would never forget for the rest of her life. The crowd was envious. A conjoint body mighty figure making tea and a sect master serving it, who could enjoy such treatment? Dao Lord Lan Yu did not dare to disobey and received the teacup respectfully with both hands. She walked to Su Zimo expressionlessly and said through gritted teeth, "Please." "Thank you, sect master." Smiling gently, Su Zimo took the teacup and drank it. The moment Su Zimo raised his head to drink his tea, a hint of viciousness flashed through the depths of Dao Lord Lan Yu's eyes before vanishing swiftly. Chapter 970, Breakthrough. Chapter 970, Breakthrough. There was no bitterness in the supreme-grade mystic tea when it entered his stomach. It carried a faint sweet fragrance and turned into a warm current that flowed through his limbs and bones before fusing into his body. Finally, a ball of spirit chi gathered from the tea and surged into his spirit platform, breaking through Su Zimo's consciousness and engulfing his two essence spirits. Instinctively, Su Zimo closed his eyes and sat on the ground. The spirit chi nourished the two essence spirits, cleansing the impurities in the black-haired essence spirit and refining the yin chi in the scarlet-haired yin spirit. Under the nourishment of the ball of spirit chi, the two essence spirits became increasingly condensed and pure, advancing towards the void reversion realm. Before leaving Thousand Demon Valley, Su Zimo had already cultivated his two essence spirits to the peak of late-stage nascent soul realm with the help of the 1,000-year blood sea. Right now, he was already on the brink of a breakthrough after fighting against many nascent soul paragons. With the help of the supreme-grade mystic tea, there were almost no obstacles and he broke through in less than half an hour. Everything happened naturally. Ah! Su Zimo opened his eyes and let out a long howl into the skies with a divine glow. Perfected nascent soul. In 100 years, he had advanced from golden core to perfected nascent soul realm. That was a terrifying speed. Throughout history, there were not many cultivators who could reach that speed. 140-year-old nascent soul. Although he did not look young, Su Zimo was equivalent to a teenager if he was compared to a mortal with 100 years of lifespan. Many cultivators were shocked. Everyone did not know that Su Zimo was cultivating two great essence spirits at the same time and was even using them to nurture the creation Green Lotus. Otherwise, he might have already entered the void reversion realm. Now that his essence spirit was at the perfected stage, Su Zimo could clearly sense that the dharmic powers that he could control were much stronger. Furthermore, he could vaguely sense the barrier of the void reversion realm. The difference between perfected nascent soul and the void reversion realm was only a single step. However, that single step stumped countless cultivators. In fact, some cultivators were unable to break through this barrier and enter the void reversion realm for the rest of their lives. Breaking through a major cultivation realm was the most difficult. It was perfectly normal for people to cultivate several hundred years to attempt to break through. For example, perfected Lord Pang Lan, who died in Su Zimo's hands earlier on, only managed to take half a step forward after cultivating for hundreds of years and had yet to truly break through to void reversion realm. Congratulations. Shangguan Zi smiled slightly. Thank you, Senior. Su Zimo hurriedly stood up and bowed. Shangguan Zi nodded and turned to look at Lord Daoist Lan Yu, saying indifferently, Lan Yu, you are to blame for the current state of the Thousand Crane Tea Party. This is unforgivable. Dao Lord Lan Yu's heart skipped a beat. Shangguan Zi's tone was extremely stern. It was clear that she was truly enraged and this matter would not end peacefully. Master, I know my mistake now. Dao Lord Lan Yu knelt on the ground hurriedly and apologized loudly with a terrified expression. Shangguan Zi shook her head and said sternly, as a sect master, you're unjust and ungrateful. If I hadn't come out of seclusion in time, I can't imagine how much trouble you would have caused or how badly the sect would have been implicated because of your actions. Dao Lord Lan Yu sprawled on the ground, trembling slightly and not daring to speak. Lan Yu, from this day forth, you are no longer the sect master of Thousand Cranes Sect. Shangguan Zi said slowly. Yes, master. Dao Lord Lan Yu did not dare to question as she lowered her head and replied softly. Shangguan Zi stood still for a moment before she took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, according to the rules of the sect, you committed an unforgivable crime and should be executed. Dao Lord Lan Yu shuddered in fright. Pausing for a moment, Shangguan Zi continued, however, on account of the fact that you've been under my tutelage for so many years, I'll just cripple your cultivation today and kick you out of the sect. Go and lead a peaceful life as a mortal. The cultivators were moved. In the blink of an eye, the high and mighty sect master who was insufferably arrogant earlier on had fallen to the mortal realm. Everyone knew that the punishment was not severe at all. If Shangguan Zi had not come out of seclusion, Dao Lord Lan Yu would have attacked Dao Lord Scarlet Star and the other two and detained Su Zimo. That would have been a calamity and Thousand Cranes Sect would have been doomed. Master, I really know my mistake now. Dao Lord Lan Yu was truly frightened. She crawled to Shangguan Zi's feet and cried. Grandmaster, please show mercy. Leng Ro could not bear to see Dao Lord Lan Yu in such a state and knelt down as well to plead for mercy. No matter what, Dao Lord Lan Yu was her master at the end of the day. Shangguan Zi turned to look at Leng Ro and asked, despite the way she treated you, you're pleading for mercy for her sake. Please show mercy, Grandmaster. Leng Ro pursed her lips and replied. Shangguan Zi was silent for a moment before nodding. All right, I'll give you another chance. However, you won't be able to escape punishment. Take Lan Yu to the disciplinary hall and subject her to the 9 core punishments. Thank you, Master. Thank you for your kindness. Dao Lord Lan Yu hurriedly kowtowed as though she was pardoned. Although she was punished, she could at least preserve her cultivation and have a chance to make a comeback. 2 Dharma characteristic Dao Lords stood out and helped Dao Lord Lan Yu up, heading towards the depths of Thousand Crane Sect. Shangguan Zi turned to look at Leng Ro. The coldness in her eyes dissipated a lot as she said, your name is Leng Ro, right? Join me from now on. Leng Ro was slightly stunned. Little Fatty beamed and pushed Leng Ro hurriedly, whispering, what are you waiting for? Hurry and acknowledge your master. The crowd was envious. This was a tremendous opportunity. To be taken in by a conjoint body as a disciple personally meant that not only would Leng Rou's strength increase, her status in Thousand Cranes Sect in the future would soar as well. Leng Rou knelt down and kowtowed. "Greetings, Master." Su Zimo was happy for Leng Rou when he saw that. It was already extremely benevolent of Leng Rou to stand out and plead for Dao Lord Lan Yu. Now that Senior Shangguan was willing to take her in as a disciple, it was naturally her fate and fortune. The tea party continued. Many cultivators entered the fray to fight for the ordinary mystic tea. However, compared to the shocking battle earlier on, the fight between these nascent soul paragons seemed much more ordinary. With a conjoint body mighty figure like Shangguan Zi around, the tea party went smoothly. By the time night fell, it was already over. Some cultivators bid farewell that night. Some cultivators rested for the night in Thousand Crane Sect. Everyone knew that today's battle was merely the beginning. The true storm was still coming. Yi Tiancheng, perfected Lord Pang Lan and many void reversions of the immortal sects died in the hands of Su Zimo. The immortal sects were not going to let this go. Furthermore, Su Zimo slaughtered Yi Tiancheng, declared war upon Di'in after his domineering return. How would Di'in respond to that? If a few immortal sects were to attack at the same time, would 100 Refinement Sect be able to protect Su Zimo? Additionally, at the end of the Thousand Crane Tea Party, a letter caused a conjoint body mighty figure of Thousand Crane Sect to appear and almost reversed the entire situation, even causing a sect master to fall from grace. Who did this letter come from? Chapter 971, Body Reconstruction. Chapter 971, Body Reconstruction. The tea party ended and everyone dispersed. Dao Lord Scarlet Star said to Su Zimo, "Uncle Master, Grand Master wants you to hurry back." "Yes." Su Zimo nodded. The reason why there was such a huge commotion was because Dao Lord Extreme Fire was worried about his safety. Su Zimo said, "Let's head back tonight then." Little Fatty, Leng Rou, and the others were naturally reluctant to part with Su Zimo after not seeing him for 100 years. After the tea party, they had nothing else to do, so they followed Su Zimo to 100 Refinement Sect. Apart from them, there were also Shangguan Zi, Elder Gu and Old Man Gu. Shangguan Zi summoned a white cloud and led everyone towards 100 Refinement Sect at full speed. When Dao Bing Yuding led everyone from 100 Refinement Sect to Thousand Crane Sect, they walked for almost half a day. But now, a conjoint body led all the cultivators at full speed and arrived at 100 Refinement Sect in less than 10 minutes. This speed was truly frightening. Many of the 100 Refinement Sect cultivators returned to the sect in high spirits, wishing for nothing more than to recount the events of the Thousand Crane Tea Party throughout the sect. Su Zimo brought Leng Rou and the others back to his cave abode. Everyone naturally had a lot to say after not seeing each other for 100 years. That was even more likely for Shangguan Zi, Elder Gu and Old Man Gu, who had not seen each other for 5,000 years. After Shangguan Zi and the others arrived at 100 Refinement Sect, they headed straight for the 100 Refinement Hall with excited expressions. Su Zimo, Leng Rou, Little Fatty and the others spent the entire night talking about everything that had happened to them for the past 100 years. The laughter in the cave abode never stopped. Little Fatty bounced around excitedly the entire night. Everyone seemed to have returned to the past when they were in Ethereal Peak. Morning. Su Zimo and the others did not sleep the entire night. However, they were still full of energy and were in high spirits. Before long, Dao Lord Scarlet Star came to visit and asked Su Zimo to head to the 100 Refinement Hall to meet Dao Lord Extreme Fire. Without hesitation, Su Zimo followed Dao Lord Scarlet Star to the main hall. Dao Lord Scarlet Star stood guard outside while Su Zimo entered alone. Deep in the hall, it was stuffy. After passing through a long corridor, he arrived at the innermost area and everything opened up before him. It was a secret chamber with a huge dome. In the secret chamber, a ball of scorching flames spewed continuously from the ground on the left. On the right, there was a gigantic spirit pool with countless spirit herbs and plants rising and falling, immortal spirit flower, Azure Sun Branch, Dragon Phoenix Lotus, Xian Yuan Grass, 10,000-year blood ginseng. It was filled with vitality and spirit qi that was dense and gave off a rich aura of life. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. These spirit herbs and elixirs were rare even on ordinary days. Only a sect like 100 Refinements sect with an immense foundation and strength could gather so many of them. Dao Lord Extreme Fire's essence spirit stood in midair not far away. I've heard about what happened at the tea party. As for what happens next, I'll handle it. You don't have to worry. Dao Lord Extreme Fire consoled Su Zimo. I called you here today because I want you to witness the entire process of forging the bones and body. Dao Lord Extreme Fire continued, back then, I merely explained it to you. I'm sure there are many things that you might not understand. Today, I'll demonstrate it once more. You have to remember every single detail. Su Zimo nodded. In truth, his current body could be said to be perfect and earth-shaking. He cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness and fused with the bloodline of the dragon race. His blood qi was terrifying. Even the physique and bloodline of the primordial 9 races could not compare to him. Su Zimo did not know how to exchange a body at all. Given his current physique, he felt that there was no need to either. However, he had a feeling that Dao Lord Extreme Fire was implying something and focused his attention. This flame is the Earth Core Fire. It's extremely hot and can melt many natural materials. Dao Lord Extreme Fire explained to Su Zimo as he demonstrated. Let's fuse the 9 fire elemental materials together first. Dao Lord Extreme Fire placed the weapon tripod on the Earth Core Fire and placed the Scarlet Phoenix Blood Ore, Sunstone, Lava Crystal, Thousand Demon Blood Stone, Nirvana Stone and other top-tier materials into the weapon tripod before slowly melting them. Thereafter, he used the liquid inside to forge the bones he needed. It was a long and complicated process. Dao Lord Extreme Fire was extremely patient as he explained while tempering and explaining every single detail. Su Zimo memorized everything. It took a full 3 days before a skeleton was created. Every single section of the skeleton had a natural fire elemental pattern that emitted a scorching heat. The skeleton could be said to be perfect and every single part of it was carved with exquisite jade bracelets. It was a godly work of art that was truly admirable. With that skeleton, the power of fire-based dermic arts would definitely increase. Dao Lord Extreme Fire consumed a lot of energy after completing the bone forging process. He continued explaining things to Su Zimo while resting. Next is the process of body tempering. Dao Lord Extreme Fire pointed to the spirit pool not far away. This spirit pool contains all spirit herbs and elixirs that can provide life essence. By using this skeleton to nourish one's bloodline, one can nurture their organs and other organs in this spirit pool. This process is rather long, even longer than bone forging. Dao Lord Extreme Fire took a deep breath and pointed to a brand new storage bag beside him. Keep this storage bag. Picking up the storage bag, Su Zimo took a look and his heart skipped a beat. The storage bag contained a large amount of spirit herbs and elixirs that were identical to the ones in the spirit pool. Not only that, there were also some top-grade bone tempering ores in his storage bag. Su Zimo looked at Dao Lord Extreme Fire. This gift was way too precious. Even if he sold all the treasures of Ethereal Peak, they would not be as valuable as this small storage bag. I specially instructed 100 Refinements Sect to collect 2 sets of spirit herbs and elixirs when they were gathering the materials. Dao Lord Extreme Fire said meaningfully, take it. You might need it in the future. Su Zimo nodded and put away the storage bag. Alright, body tempering comes after bone forging. Dao Lord Extreme Fire's essence spirit flickered and arrived at the glabella of the skeleton's head. He controlled the skeleton to enter the spirit pool and sit down cross-D. Swoosh! An endless stream of life essence surged into the scarlet skeleton. At the same time, Dao Lord Extreme Fire controlled his dermic powers with his essence spirit and vibrated his bones continuously. Splash! The sound of bone marrow flowing could be heard from his bones. Marrow cleansing. Su Zimo was extremely familiar with that scene. There was the marrow cleansing section in the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Using the sound of tigers and leopards, one can purify the marrow and create a new bloodline to achieve the goal of blood purification. Gradually, pink flesh that was as thin as a cicada's wings appeared on the scarlet skeleton. As time passed by, the flesh on his bones gradually filled up. Tao Lord Extreme Fire's outline gradually became clearer. The secret chamber was silent. At that moment, the cultivation world of the Middle Continent was in an uproar as news after news spread one after another, creating huge waves. Chapter 972, Rising Storm. Chapter 972, Rising Storm. The top of the phenomenon ranking 100 years ago, Su Zimo, has returned. During the Thousand Crane Tea Party, Su Zimo killed Yi Tiancheng and perfected Lord Pang Lan and defeated many nascent soul paragons. Even void reversions were defeated by him and he was conferred as the #1 perfected lord. After not seeing him for 100 years, this monster incarnate is even more terrifying than before. He even declared war on Di'in at the tea party. Of the 2 paragons of Chaos Essence Sect, only one remains. The news spread rapidly in the cultivation world of the Middle Continent and caused a huge stir. At that moment, cultivators and factions from all over the Middle Continent were discussing this matter. This man has been dormant for 100 years and yet, he has not changed his character after his return. He offended so many factions the moment he appeared. I don't think he's going to live much longer. Not necessarily. I heard that 100 Refinement Sect has clearly expressed their intention to protect this person. Fufu, 100 Refinement Sect is declining day by day and can no longer protect itself. Who else can it protect? That's right. If a few super sects were to exert pressure at the same time, 100 Refinement Sect would have to submit as well. Otherwise, 100 Refinement Sect might be annihilated. Not necessarily. I've heard some news. I heard that a Dharma characteristic expert who has been missing for thousands of years has returned and is reconstructing his body. What's the use of Dharma characteristic experts for something as important as the survival of a sect? Someone scoffed in disdain. This Dharma characteristic expert is extraordinary. I heard he's Tao Lord Extreme Fire from 5,000 years ago. Who is Tao Lord Extreme Fire? I've never heard of him. It's him. The #1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago. He's still alive. News of what happened at the Thousand Crane Tea Party spread and it was not difficult to deduce the truth with some of the details. After all, there were very few people who could invite 2 elders of Ancient Array Sect and Elixir Yang Sect who had been reclusive for thousands of years and a conjoint body mighty figure of Thousand Crane Sect with just a single letter. At the same time, in Sword Sect. Immortal Sword Tao Residence. After Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift's clones were destroyed in Thousand Demon Valley, they stayed here for more than 3 months to exchange their Tao technique knowledge with Tao Lord Immortal Sword. In the past few days, the 2 of them had intended to leave. However, news arrived one after another at Sword Sect and their schedule was temporarily set aside. Tao Lord Immortal Sword said slowly with a cold expression, "If Tao Lord Extreme Fire isn't dead, he should be the one who fought me in Thousand Demon Valley." No wonder. Tao Lord Cloud Rain said, "Back when your essence spirits were fighting, that person released the Soaring Serpent Flame Deity Essence Spirit secret skill. It's not right." Fairy Snowdrift shook her head. "I heard that Tao Lord Extreme Fire is reconstructing his body. There's no way he could be the person we met back then who possessed an intact flesh body. This doesn't make sense. If there was someone else present, that would explain everything." Tao Lord Immortal Sword's gaze flickered as he remarked faintly. "What do you mean by that?" Fairy Snowdrift and Tao Lord Cloud Rain looked over. Su Zimo. A name popped out from the gaps between Tao Lord Immortal Sword's teeth. Fairy Snowdrift and Tao Lord Cloud Rain frowned. The number one perfected lord with the greatest reputation recently? Dao Lord Cloud Rain frowned. The timing of his return and Extreme Fire's return is indeed a coincidence. However, what has he got to do with this? Dao Lord Immortal Sword narrowed his eyes and said sternly, previously, the news from our Sword Sect disciples stated that the monster incarnate, Su Zimo, has returned and mastered an extremely terrifying sword art. Even our top paragons of Sword Sect such as Jian Wuzong and Hang Qiuyu were nearly killed by that sword art. When Dao Lord Immortal Sword saw that the two of them were still confused, he pondered for a moment before saying in a deep voice, since things have come to this, there are some things I won't hide anymore. Back then, I asked the both of you to help me fight for the treasure in Thousand Demon Valley. That was actually a sword art. It was one of the 3 ancient sword arts. Ah! Fairy Snowdrift and Dao Lord Cloud Rain exclaimed in shock. The 3 ancient sword arts were way too famous. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said hatefully, as I expected, this sword art should have fallen into Su Zimo's hands. I've got it. Dao Lord Cloud Rain was enlightened. You're saying that the one who fought us in Thousand Demon Valley was actually Su Zimo's body and Dao Lord Extreme Fire's essence spirit. That's right. Dao Lord Immortal Sword nodded. My demon sealing diagram was not suppressed by that person's dermic powers. Instead, it was suppressed by the aura of Su Zimo's divine phoenix bone, and that was why it was taken away so easily. This junior sure has guts. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's expression was cold and he did not conceal the killing intent in his eyes. His clone was destroyed and he returned empty-handed. He even gave up many treasures just to invite Fairy Snowdrift and Dao Lord Cloud Rain. All the grievances that he had accumulated over the past few days were directed towards Su Zimo. Why? Are you prepared to settle scores with that lad? Dao Lord Cloud Rain raised his brow and asked with a fake smile. Dao Lord Immortal Sword harumphed coldly. I've said it before. If I find out who this person is, I'll kill him no matter what. Then you have to hurry and get moving. Dao Lord Cloud Rain smiled gently. After the 1,000 Crane Tea Party, that lad has truly caused a huge calamity. Yi Tiancheng, perfected Lord Pang Lan and many void reversions are dead. Those immortal sects must have made a move. Dao Lord Extreme Fire, 100 Refinement Sect. Dao Lord Immortal Sword sneered, I'm going to pay a personal visit and see how 100 Refinement Sect reacts. I don't believe that they can withstand the pressure of so many super sects. Brother Cloud Rain, why don't you accompany me? Dao Lord Immortal Sword turned and asked with a sincere expression. Dao Lord Cloud Rain knew that Dao Lord Immortal Sword was only inviting him because the latter wanted to borrow his influence. However, he did not decline. He was not interested in Su Zimo. However, now that 5,000 years have passed, he wanted to see how Dao Lord Extreme Fire, who was the number 1 on the Dharma characteristic ranking and suppressed him back then, was doing. Snowdrift, why don't you come with us if you're free? Dao Lord Immortal Sword invited Fairy Snowdrift as well. Sure. Fairy Snowdrift nodded and said indifferently, however, I'm not heading over because I want to help you. I'm just curious about Su Zimo and Dao Lord Extreme Fire. There's no time to lose, let's move. Dao Lord Immortal Sword leaped up and headed out of the cave abode. The moment he arrived outside the cave abode, a sword beam sped over from afar and descended before Dao Lord Immortal Sword. It was a woman with a fluttering white dress and a long sword on her back. She was extremely beautiful and had a heroic aura between her brows. It was the Dharma characteristic expert of Sword Sect, Qin Pianran. Senior brother, Dao Bing Han Jian of the sect died at the 1,000 Crane Tea Party. Master told me to head to 100 Refinement Sect to get the culprit. Qin Pianran looked at Fairy Snowdrift with hostility as she spoke. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said indifferently, we're about to go together. You should come as well. Without saying anything, the 4 of them summoned their dermic weapons and sped into the distance. Before long, they disappeared above Sword Sect. At the same time, Dharma characteristic Dao Lords from Heavenly Dipper Sect, Chaos Essence Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace appeared with murderous auras and rushed towards 100 Refinement Sect. The other sects and factions were also acting strangely. A storm was rising in the Middle Continent. Chapter 973, Arrival of Dao Lords. Chapter 973, Arrival of Dao Lords. 100 Refinement Sect. Dao Lord Extreme Fire was at the end of his forging process and was no longer in danger. The only thing he had to do was wait. Su Zimo left silently. Outside the hall, not only were Dao Lord Scarlet Star and the other 100 Refinement Sect cultivators guarding, Elder Gu had even set up an array formation personally to prevent any unforeseen circumstances. Su Zimo looked over and could not see anything. However, he could vaguely sense that there were other powerful beings in the corners of the hall. In fact, there might even be conjoint body mighty figures guarding in secret. Everyone was waiting for Dao Lord Extreme Fire to be reborn. Actually, Su Zimo had already killed a few people at the Thousand Crane Tea Party and was prepared to leave. He did not want to implicate 100 Refinement Sect. It was the same reason why he did not return to Ethereal Peak in the past. He did not want to implicate them. However, Dao Lord Extreme Fire retained him still. Sect Master, Dao Lord Red Tiger of Tyrant Emperor Mountain is here to visit. Before long, 100 Refinement Sect cultivator sent a message. Let him rest in the front hall. Dao Lord White Flames was long prepared and passed down the order. Tyrant Emperor Mountain was one of the 108 upper sects and its status in the cultivation world was beneath the 4 unorthodox groups. As the sect master of 100 Refinement Sect, he naturally wouldn't receive them personally. Fufu, looks like even some of the upper sects can't sit still and want to take advantage of the situation. Dao Lord Scarlet Star sneered. A moment later, another 100 Refinement Sect cultivator sped over and said in a deep voice, Sect Master, Dao Lord Heaven's Sea of 5 Elements Sect is here to pay a visit. Yes, arrange all of them to be in the front hall. Dao Lord White Flames nodded. Not long after, another 100 Refinement Sect cultivator came to send a message. Sect Master, Dao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace is here. Dao Lord White Flames, Dao Lord Scarlet Star, and the others felt their hearts skip a beat. They were finally here. The Dharma characteristics of the 9 immortal sects have arrived with hostile intentions. Sect Master, Heavenly Dipper Sect's Dao Lord Breaking Skies is here. Sect Master, Dao Lord Cloud Son of Chaos Essence Sect has arrived. Formless Monastery's Monk Kong Wen is here. Monk Liao Ming of Wisdom Monastery is here. As the master of a sect, Dao Lord White Flames was able to maintain his composure even after hearing the arrival of super sections. Sect Master, Dao Lord Immortal Sword, Fairy Snowdrift and Dao Lord Cloud Rain have arrived together. Another piece of news arrived. Finally, Dao Lord White Flames' expression changed. Although the Dharma characteristics at the front were famous as well, they could not be compared to these 3. Dao Lord Cloud Rain was second on the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago. Fairy Snowdrift was number 1 on the Dharma characteristic ranking 2,000 years ago. Dao Lord Immortal Sword, number 1 of the previous Dharma characteristic ranking. Furthermore, the 3 of them were titular disciples of Cloud Rain Sect, Snowdrift Valley and Sword Sect. It's easy to explain why Dao Lord Immortal Sword is here. But why are Fairy Snowdrift and Dao Lord Cloud Rain here? Dao Lord Scarlet Star frowned. Dao Lord White Flames turned to everyone and cupped his fists. I've got to deal with it. Everyone, wait here. Don't show yourself first. Wait for the news of Granduncle Master Extreme Fire's return to be released. Before Dao Lord White Flames left, he reminded Su Zimo. I'll go with you. Dao Lord Scarlet Star said as he sped to the front with Dao Lord White Flames. In the front hall. The hall was extremely spacious and was purely made of metal. It was filled with a metallic texture and looked indestructible. Many cultivators were already seated in the hall. Every single one of them had a powerful aura and a reckless might. The disciples of 100 Refinement Sect that served tea were all jittery, worried that they might offend these important figures. Nangong Ling, Lu Hanyan and Ru Xian were in the hall. The Dharma characteristic Dao lords that arrived were already seated. The ones seated at the highest seats were Dao Lord Immortal Sword, Fairy Snowdrift and Dao Lord Cloud Rain. Although Cloud Rain's sect was a fiend sect, none of the Dharma characteristic Dao lords present dared to provoke Dao Lord Cloud Rain. In the cultivation world, strength reigns supreme. Since there were many Dharma characteristic Dao lords gathered here, there were naturally exchanges of greetings. Of course, everyone knew why they were here. After exchanging pleasantries, they fell silent. All of them had dark expressions of anger. The atmosphere in the hall was a little tense. Piak. Suddenly, the heavy palm of Dao Lord Red Tiger of Tyrant Emperor Mountain slammed onto the metal table with a loud bang. Ru Xian, who had just served the tea, was shocked. She could not hold the teacup properly and it fell to the ground with a loud crack, shattering into pieces. What is your 100 Refinement Sect doing? Dao Lord Red Tiger had a muscular build and had tempered his body for many years. He looked extremely tall and muscular with eyes that resembled copper bells. He glared at Ru Xian beside him and hollered with a ferocious aura. So many Dharma characteristic Dao lords have come to visit and 100 Refinement Sect sent you brats to deal with us? Is this how 100 Refinement Sect treats its guests? Dao Lord Red Tiger's voice was like a bell, ringing in Ru Xian's ears and making her dizzy. Nangong Ling and Lu Hanyan endured their emotions and hurried forward to pull Ru Xian back. Aren't you ashamed of bullying the juniors? A cold sneer sounded from outside as Dao Lord Scarlet Star walked in. When he saw his disciple being bullied by a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord, he was naturally enraged and his tone was blunt. Hee, if that's not the case, who knows how long you guys from 100 Refinement Sect will have to hide for? Dao Lord Red Tiger chuckled. Dao Lord Heaven Sea of 5 Elements Sect added in a strange tone, that's right. If 100 Refinement Sect were to cower and hide, there's nothing we can do. Heaven Sea, Red Tiger, you're on 100 Refinement Sect's grounds. Mind your words. Dao Lord White Flames said coldly. How impressive. A cold glint flickered in Dao Lord Fire Cloud's eyes as he said slowly, no wonder 100 Refinement Sect dared to take in a fiend demon despite the universal condemnation. Fellow Daoist Fire Cloud, what are you talking about? Dao Lord White Flames asked indifferently. Stop pretending. Heavenly Dipper Sect's Dao Lord Breaking Skies rose slowly and said, White Flames, hand over Su Zimo and 100 Refinement Sect might be able to retain your status as one of the 4 unorthodox groups. Otherwise, 100 Refinement Sect is about to be destroyed. Amitba. Formless Monastery's Kong Wen pressed his palms together and lowered his gaze, saying softly, Patron White Flames, we Buddhists have always been unwilling to fight with others. However, that Su Zimo is definitely not a good person. He massacred the paragons of the human race wantonly and even took the supreme treasure of the Buddhist sect, the creation green lotus, for himself. He deserves to die. Dao Lord White Flame sneered, Monk Kongwen, aren't you being unreasonable? Su Zimo has obtained the recognition of Human Emperor and Fairy Ling Long in Myriad Phenomenon City. To be able to resolve the catastrophe of the paragons single-handedly, he's definitely a human. Furthermore, the creation green lotus is a treasure given to him by Enigma Palace. What has it got to do with the Buddhist sects? White Flames. Suddenly, Dao Lord Immortal Sword spoke. Instantly, the hall fell silent. Nobody dared to underestimate this number 1 Dao Lord of the Dharma characteristic ranking. Hand him over. 100 Refinement Sect can't protect him. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said slowly, in other words, I'm going to barge into 100 Refinement Sect right now to take him away. Who would dare to stop me? Who can stop me? His words were extremely domineering, but nobody dared to question him. Given Dao Lord Immortal Sword's combat strength, he could probably fight against conjoint body mighty figures. If Dao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift were to join forces with him, their combat strength would be terrifying. Even if 100 Refinement Sect could withstand it, they would suffer immense losses. Furthermore, Dao Lord Immortal Sword was a titular disciple of Sword Sect and the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking. 100 Refinement Sect would not dare to kill him. If you dare to barge into 100 Refinement Sect, I'll kill you. Right then, a cold and powerful voice sounded from outside. Chapter 974, Extreme Fire Emerges. Chapter 974, Extreme Fire Emerges. There were not many cultivators in the cultivation world who would dare to speak to Dao Lord Immortal Sword in that tone. This was the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking and a titular disciple. That reputation meant that Dao Lord Immortal Sword was an existence that could sweep through all beings of the same level and fight against ordinary conjoint body mighty figures. Above conjoint body mighty figures were Mahayana patriarchs. Mahayana realm experts would almost never appear in Tianhuang mainland unless something major happened. Therefore, conjoint body mighty figures included, not many people would dare to claim that they could kill Dao Lord Immortal Sword. Furthermore, he was backed by Sword Sect. Throughout history, some immortal sects were destroyed, some rose and some declined. However, Sword Sect stood strong and its strength was always ranked in the top 3. In other words, who would dare to kill him? Dao Lord Immortal Sword's gaze turned cold. Everyone turned to look. Outside the main hall, 2 people strolled in. The leader wore a long, fiery red Daoist robe and seemed to be burning with flames. His black hair draped over his shoulders and he had 3 long whiskers. His face was rosy and his eyes were bright, exuding a violent and blazing aura. The temperature of the entire hall rose rapidly after that person entered. There were more than 10 Dharma characteristic Dao lords in the hall with mixed auras and unrestrained might. However, after this person entered, the mixed auras and pressure of many Dao lords seemed to be incinerated into nothingness instantly. His aura was even more domineering than his words. Extreme fire, you're indeed still alive. Dao Lord Cloud Rain looked at that person and said slowly with bright eyes. The person smiled indifferently and surveyed his surroundings before saying slowly, I'm Extreme Fire. Everyone, you've come from afar. The journey must have been tough on you. Dao Lord Extreme Fire. All the cultivators present were shocked and they heard that name. Many gazes landed on Dao Lord Extreme Fire as they sized up this expert from 5,000 years ago. Dao Lord Immortal Sword looked at Dao Lord Extreme Fire expressionlessly as streaks of sword light flashed through his eyes before vanishing. Grandmaster. When Dao Lord Scarlet Star saw Dao Lord Extreme Fire return unharmed after reconstructing his body, he was delighted and excited. Dao Lord Extreme Fire was exactly the same as the way he had remembered his Grandmaster to be. After 5,000 years, time seemed to have not left a single mark on Dao Lord Extreme Fire. Furthermore, Dao Lord Extreme Fire looked even scarier than he was 5,000 years ago. Everyone turned to look at the cultivator behind Dao Lord Extreme Fire. It was a nascent soul. He wore green robes and had a refined appearance. His eyes were clear and he had one hand behind his back, looking like a frail scholar. For some unknown reason, the scholar gave off a strange feeling. Everyone took a few more glances at him before turning back to Dao Lord Extreme Fire. Dao Lord Extreme Fire led the delicate scholar behind him through the hall towards the main seat and said in a seemingly casual manner, "Everyone, you've arrived at the right moment. Let me introduce to all of you, this is my disciple, Su Zimo." The Dharma characteristic Dao lords present were shocked. Su Zimo. To a certain extent, that name shocked many Dao lords even more. The top of the phenomenon ranking 100 years ago. He defeated Di'in in Myriad Phenomenon City, massacred 2 different foreign races and was invincible among his peers. After laying dormant for 100 years, he returned in a domineering manner and killed many paragons such as Yi Tiancheng and perfected Lord Panglan. Even void reversions were not his match and he was conferred the title of number 1 perfected lord at the 1,000 Crane Tea Party. This person had risen way too quickly. Nobody knew what level this person would reach in another 100 years. If Tao Lord Extreme Fire had not said it personally, none of the cultivators present would have imagined that the scholarly man before them was the infamous number 1 perfected lord. Was this scholar a demon? The gazes of many Tao lords landed on Su Zimo once more as they surveyed him. Everyone frowned slightly. They could not sense any aura of the demon race from Su Zimo. Or rather, even the Dharma characteristic Tao lords present could not see through Su Zimo. Naturally, the reason why the Tao lords were shocked was not because they were fearful of Su Zimo's strength. It was because Su Zimo was a huge treasure in their eyes. Nominally, many immortal sects came to seek revenge under the guise of slaying demons. However, in reality, many of the Tao lords were more concerned about how to split the treasures on Su Zimo. Tao Lord Immortal Sword was thinking about the heaven-slaying sword art. The 2 Buddhist monks were concerned about the creation Green Lotus and lost secret skills such as the Daming True Sutra. Tao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace wanted to snatch the Purple Thunder Manual from Su Zimo. There was also the legendary Divine Phoenix Bone. You're Su Zimo. Tao Lord Red Tiger of Tyrant Emperor Mountain grinned, and without any warning, he suddenly attacked and roared, "Since you dare to cripple a paragon of Tyrant Emperor Mountain, I'll cripple you." Among the Dharma characteristic Tao lords present, only Tao Lord Cloud Rain came from the same generation as Tao Lord Extreme Fire. The others did not have a strong impression of Tao Lord Extreme Fire and naturally would not feel much fear. Su Zimo had merely gone missing for 100 years before countless paragons after him underestimated and questioned him. What more, Tao Lord Extreme Fire had gone missing for 5,000 years. Of course, all the Dharma characteristic Tao lords present were monsters that had cultivated for thousands of years. None of them were fools. Although Tao Lord Red Tiger seemed reckless and ignored Tao Lord Extreme Fire, he was actually testing the latter's attitude. If Tao Lord Extreme Fire had a firm attitude and attacked decisively, he would be able to test Tao Lord Extreme Fire's strength through that single clash. Swoosh! Tao Lord Red Tiger's fist carried a suffocating might as dermic powers surged forth. Tao Lord Extreme Fire turned slightly and his eyes seemed to be blazing with flames. He stopped in his tracks and waved his sleeves. It filled with boundless dermic powers and surged viciously towards Tao Lord Red Tiger's fist. Boom! When Tao Lord Red Tiger's fist collided with the seemingly soft Taoist robe, an earth-shaking boom sounded. Tao Lord Red Tiger's expression changed. Even though it was just a simple clash, he could already tell that Tao Lord Extreme Fire's strength was far above him. Fufu, such strong methods. You truly live up to your reputation. Tao Lord Red Tiger chuckled dryly and wanted to retreat. You still want to leave? Tao Lord Extreme Fire sneered. Suddenly, a gigantic palm extended from beneath his wide sleeves and gripped Tao Lord Red Tiger's fist. Tao Lord Red Tiger's heart sank. He realized that he could no longer escape. Tyrant Emperor Mountain specialized in body tempering. However, he felt waves of throbbing pain that penetrated into his bones when his fist was grabbed by Tao Lord Extreme Fire's palm. It was as though his fist would be crushed by Tao Lord Extreme Fire the next moment. Instantly, a layer of sweat appeared on Tao Lord Red Tiger's forehead. Tao Lord, please spare, ah. Just as Tao Lord Red Tiger was about to admit defeat, he saw another scene. His pupils constricted and he let out a tragic cry. A scarlet flame appeared in Tao Lord Extreme Fire's palm and burned his fist to ashes. The ball of flames was extremely terrifying and was spreading along his arm towards his body. Chapter 975, Burning a Dharma Characteristic. Chapter 975, Burning a Dharma Characteristic. Tao Lord Red Tiger released his aura and channeled his dermic powers, but he could not extinguish the flames on his arm no matter what. Instead, the scarlet flame burned brighter and brighter, almost engulfing his entire body. Extreme Fire, you! Tao Lord Red Tiger glared with bloodshot eyes, enraged. He had not expected Tao Lord Extreme Fire's reaction to be so intense when he was merely testing the waters. One of his arms was already crippled. He had not cultivated to the conjoint body realm and was unable to regenerate severed limbs yet. A crippled arm had a huge impact on Tao Lord Red Tiger, who specialized in melee combat and body tempering. His combat strength would be reduced by at least 30%. What was even more frightening was that the flame was not extinguished. Boom! Tao Lord Red Tiger's body swayed. An illusory figure rushed out from behind him. It was 50 feet tall and burst through the roof of the hall in an instant, emitting a domineering and powerful aura. Every single move it made caused the world to tremble. Heaven and Earth Dharma Characteristic. Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics were the strongest techniques of Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. That was also the reason why this realm was known as the Dharma characteristic realm. Normally, no cultivator would use their Dharma characteristic unless it was at the final moment. Be it nascent souls or void reversions, the dharmic arts they released required hand seals, incantations, or their essence spirits as mediums to draw in heaven and earth powers. However, once a cultivator reached the Dharma characteristic realm, their essence spirit would rise to another realm and they would be able to connect to heaven and earth. By fusing their bodies into heaven and earth, they achieve harmonization with dharmic powers and synergize completely with the firmaments. From there, they conjure their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. Even after cultivating to the Dharma characteristic realm, the bodies of most cultivators were still incomparable to demons. However, heaven and earth Dharma characteristics could compare to the strength of demons and they could engage in melee combat. In essence, heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were also dharmic arts. However, the existence of heaven and earth Dharma characteristics allowed one to utilize heaven and earth powers directly without the need for dharmic incantations or arts. They were even more direct and berserk. Of course, there were also differences in strength between heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. A single punch from a powerful Dharma characteristic was enough to overturn rivers and oceans. A single stomp was enough to shatter mountains. The larger the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, the more heaven and earth powers it could control and the stronger it was. Typically speaking, a Dharma characteristic that was 50 feet tall was already considered outstanding. If one could form a Dharma characteristic that was 60 feet tall, he would definitely be considered as a paragon. The renowned 18 meters metal body of Diamond Monastery was a 60 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. If one could condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 70 feet tall, they would be a peerless paragon that appeared once in 1,000 years. Boundless opportunities and massive fortunes were required for one of these paragons to be born. One could be considered as a monster incarnate if they could condense a 80 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. They could naturally sweep through anyone of the same level with ease. Almost all the number one of the Dharma characteristic rankings could condense 80 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. Of course, it was said that the highest grade Dharma characteristic was 90 feet. 9 was an extreme number. An existence that could cultivate a Dharma characteristic that was 90 feet tall was extremely rare and could be considered as a peerless monster incarnate. It was not only dependent on the cultivator's bloodline, opportunities, luck, talent, physique, or the nurturing of a sect. There were many other factors as well, and it even depended on the environment of the cultivation world. In the ancient era, in order to escape the fate of being enslaved, the human race rose against the tides. It was a glorious era that belonged to the human race. In that sort of environment, countless paragons and monster incarnates appeared. There was no lack of existences that could cultivate 90 feet Dharma characteristics. Almost all of those existences that did not die prematurely were already conferred as emperors. Without that sort of environment, without the pressure of life and death, without many powerful and terrifying enemies, it would be difficult for the human race to produce such monster incarnates. Right now, it was already quite rare for Tao Lord Red Tiger of Tyrant Emperor Mountain to be able to condense a Dharma characteristic that was more than 50 feet tall. Its might was shocking as well. Its massive body smashed through the metal roof of the entire hall and countless debris fell one after another, creating a mess in the hall. In the hall, Nangong Ling and the other cultivators with lower cultivation retreated and hid at the side. Only the Dao Lords could maintain their composure. Everyone frowned slightly. For Dao Lord Red Tiger to be forced to this extent and even release his Dharma characteristic, it was clear how terrifying that scarlet flame was. Extinguish. After releasing his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic, the flames on Dao Lord Red Tiger's body were suppressed instantly, flickering and showing signs of extinguishing. Humph. Dao Lord Extreme Fire harumphed coldly and tapped his finger gently, causing a streak of red light to shoot into the flames. Swoosh. The flames blazed and burned the skies. The intensity of the flames engulfed Dao Lord Red Tiger's Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic entirely, causing it to burn furiously with scarlet flames bursting forth from the thick smoke. Roar. The 50-foot-tall Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic struggled in the flames and waved its arms, but it could not extinguish the flames on its body. Ah! Dao Lord Red Tiger could not escape as well and was burned by the flames. His flesh turned into ashes and his bones turned red, almost transparent. Even his essence spirit could not escape from that blazing flame. At that moment, his essence spirit was about to be burned into nothingness. Extreme Fire, you are ruthless. Dao Lord Red Tiger's hoarse voice sounded from within the flames. According to his original plan, he would test the waters himself. Even if he was not a match for the other party, he would just bow his head and retreat at the most. However, he had not expected Dao Lord Extreme Fire to not give him the chance. Less than that, he had not expected Dao Lord Extreme Fire to be so strong and possess such terrifying combat strength. Even his Dharma characteristic could not defend against Dao Lord Extreme Fire's flames. Many Dao Lords looked at the bright flames in silence with different expressions. For example, Dao Lord Breaking Skies of Zephyr Thunder Palace and Dao Lord Fire Cloud of Heavenly Dipper Sect had no impression of Dao Lord Extreme Fire originally. However, everyone's impression of Dao Lord Extreme Fire gradually became clearer after this exchange. Domineering, overbearing and decisive to kill. No matter what, Dao Lord Red Tiger was a Dao Lord of Tyrant Emperor Mountain and was not a nobody. Now that Extreme Fire had killed him, that was proof of one thing. Dao Lord Extreme Fire wanted to protect Su Zimo. He did not hesitate to kill a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord or even offend an upper sect like Tyrant Emperor Mountain. At the same time, not far away from 100 Refinement Sect, cultivators with powerful auras stood in the air, looking over. They were all Dharma characteristic Dao Lords. Some of the cultivators came from one of the 108 upper sect, some were itinerant cultivators. However, there were also immortal sects such as Soaring Feather Sect. When these Dharma characteristic Dao Lords looked in the direction of 100 Refinement Sect and caught sight of that Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic that was blazing in raging flames and was howling in misery, their eyes were filled with shock. Seems like Extreme Fire has returned. From the looks of it, he's no weaker than he was back then. Everyone, let's go. Since Extreme Fire has returned, all of us old friends have to congratulate him no matter what. The reason why these Dharma characteristic Dao Lords did not enter 100 Refinement Sect was because they were watching. If the rumors were true that Dao Lord Extreme Fire was not dead and had returned in a domineering manner, they would pay him a congratulatory visit. 5,000 years ago, Dao Lord Extreme Fire was way too famous. Coupled with his status as a weapon refinement grandmaster, his influence was even greater than many conjoint body mighty figures. If Extreme Fire had not returned or if his methods were far inferior compared to before, they would not appear lest they incur the wrath of Chaos Essence Sect and the other immortal sections. In the distant horizon, a black-robed cultivator flew over with a cold expression. He carried a blood-red saber on his shoulder and his killing intent filled the air. The person looked in the direction of 100 Refinement Sect and murmured, "Thankfully, I'm not late." Chapter 976, On the Verge. Chapter 976, On the Verge. In the front hall of 100 Refinement Sect. In less than 3 breaths, the 50-foot-tall Dharma characteristic was incinerated into nothingness and its dharmic powers dissipated. Without the support of the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, Tao Lord Red Tiger could not defend against the scarlet flames and was engulfed by them in the blink of an eye. Ah! 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 He shrieked relentlessly, and at the end, his voice was almost inaudible. In front of everyone, a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord was burned to ashes without a single bone remaining. Some Dharma characteristics from upper sects who were initially also raring to test the waters became silent instantly. The only Dharma characteristic Tao Lords who could maintain their composure within the hall were those from the super sects. In a certain sense, this was the first time Su Zimo had seen Tao Lord Extreme Fire attack. In the previous 2 times, Tao Lord Extreme Fire was merely an essence spirit and did not have a physical body. As such, he could not cast such dharmic arts. Su Zimo realized that Tao Lord Extreme Fire's strength was even more terrifying than he had imagined. The 50-foot-tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic could not defend against Tao Lord Extreme Fire's dharmic art at all. After killing a Dharma characteristic, Tao Lord Extreme Fire led Su Zimo past many other Tao Lords to the main seat before sitting down as though nothing had happened. Su Zimo followed right behind, and no more Dharma characteristic Tao Lords dared to attack along the way. Well. When Tao Lord Cloud Rain saw that, he clapped his hands and praised repeatedly, saying mockingly, as expected of Extreme Fire, "You're still as mighty as ever." Tao Lord Extreme Fire said indifferently, "Even after 5,000 years, you still possess the same mannerisms. You haven't improved at all." Tao Lord Cloud Rain was not annoyed and said leisurely, "Extreme Fire, you're still at the Dharma characteristic realm after 5,000 years. You haven't improved either. Furthermore, I heard that you've even lost your body. Seems like you're not doing well, eh? Tao Lord Extreme Fire, although your body has recovered, how much of your combat strength can you recover? Back then, you were indeed a top-notch expert. But, now? Haha. Tao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace sneered. Under normal circumstances, once one lost their original bodies, it was difficult for them to achieve 100% compatibility with their essence spirits, be it whether they gained a new body through assimilation or reconstructed a new Dharma characteristic physical body. Therefore, one's combat strength would definitely weaken. However, the reason why Tao Lord Extreme Fire reconstructed his body personally was because he wanted to avoid that situation. Furthermore, his choice of material was all top grade. Right now, his essence spirit has already resonated with this physical body and the compatibility was close to 100%. As long as he continued cultivating for a period of time, his essence spirit and body would achieve perfect compatibility. Tao Lord Extreme Fire's gaze shifted and landed on Tao Lord Fire Cloud. As though 2 beams of flame were shot forth, he said slowly, "If you want to know, you can try it out." Tao Lord Fire Cloud's heart skipped a beat. He actually felt his heart skip a beat from Tao Lord Extreme Fire's glare. Initially, he wanted to rise, but he stopped right away. He did not want to become the second Tao Lord Red Tiger. Tao Lord Extreme Fire looked at Fairy Snowdrift and asked with raised brows, "Why? Does Snowdrift Valley want to interfere as well?" "It's a misunderstanding." Fairy Snowdrift smiled indifferently. "I'm only here because of your fame. Firstly, I wanted to see for myself the Tao Lord Extreme Fire from 5,000 years ago. Secondly, I wanted to see the number 1 perfected lord of the current era." She was implying that she was in a neutral position. With that said, Fairy Snowdrift's beautiful eyes shimmered as she looked toward Su Zimo, who was behind Tao Lord Extreme Fire. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent and calm. Even in a tense situation where many Dharma characteristic Tao Lords were present and released rampant auras, he could still maintain his cool. "You live up to your reputation indeed." Fairy Snowdrift smiled faintly. Nobody knew if she was referring to Tao Lord Extreme Fire or Su Zimo. Unknowingly, Tao Lord Extreme Fire had already taken control of the entire situation. At that moment, only Tao Lord Immortal Sword and the other two could ensure that their auras did not dissipate despite Tao Lord Extreme Fire's powerful aura. The entire time, Tao Lord Immortal Sword had a restrained sharpness that was kept to himself. Tao Lord Cloud Rain waved his folding fan gently as mist filled the air. The surroundings of fairy snowdrift were cold as ice. For everyone else, such as Tao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace, their auras were completely suppressed. Clang! 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 Tao Lord Immortal Sword's fingers tapped on the metal table slowly, letting out metallic sounds in a rhythmic manner. After each strike, the sharpness of his body would increase by a fraction. After a few knocks, the sharpness of Tao Lord Immortal Sword surged into the skies and sliced Tao Lord Extreme Fire's aura into two. Tao Lord Immortal Sword said slowly, "Extreme Fire, it's important to know your limits. If you want to protect this lad, don't drag the entire 100 Refinement Sect down with you." "Why? You want to attack in 100 Refinement Sect too?" Tao Lord Extreme Fire glared with killing intent. "It's not just me." Tao Lord Immortal Sword stood up slowly like an unsheathed sword and said coldly, "All of us Dharma characteristic Tao Lords of the Immortal Sects are here for him. Are you going to hand him over?" Patron Extreme Fire, 100 Refinement Sect will be at odds with Sword Sect, Chaos Essence Sect, Heavenly Dipper Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace and our two Buddhist sects because of a fiend demon. You have to consider this carefully, Monk Kong One of Formless Monastery persuaded. Extreme Fire. Tao Lord Cloud Rain stood out as well and said with a faint smile, "If you want to fight against the situation, you'll only bring destruction. Extreme Fire, hand him over. Hand him over." Tao Lord Fire Cloud, Tao Lord Breaking Skies and Tao Lord Cloud Sun stood forward one after another. The four immortal sects and two monasteries were exerting pressure at the same time. No faction in Tianhuang mainland could withstand such pressure, let alone the four unorthodox groups. "Pass the order." Tao Lord Extreme Fire stood up as well and said expressionlessly, "Kill anyone who dares to attack in 100 Refinement Sect." "How dare you?" Tao Lord Fire Cloud's gaze turned cold as he grit his teeth. 100 Refinement Sect has already declined. If we die here, 100 Refinement Sect won't be able to shoulder the responsibility. Try moving and see if I dare to kill you. Tao Lord Extreme Fire's gaze was searing and the flames in his eyes seemed to be burning. The atmosphere was tense and both parties were on the verge of fighting. Tao Lord Immortal Sword and the others did not dare to act rashly either. Tao Lord Extreme Fire's methods and spirit were stronger than they had imagined. Even the four immortal sects and two Buddhist monasteries could not suppress him. They were worried that if they attacked, Tao Lord Extreme Fire would truly disregard everything and kill them. Tao Lord Extreme Fire was wary as well. Tao Lord Immortal Sword and the others were different from Tao Lord Red Tiger. Tao Lord Red Tiger was from Tyrant Emperor Mountain, one of the upper sects. It was alright to kill him since he dared to start a fight in 100 Refinement Sect. However, the people before him were all extremely influential. If he were to kill all of them here, 100 Refinement Sect would be in deep trouble. Right then, the voice of 100 Refinement Sect disciple sounded from outside. "Sect Master, Tao Lord Ferocious Spirit is here." The Tao Lords present were shocked and they heard that name. He was an itinerant cultivator who traveled alone. However, his combat strength was extremely terrifying. He was ranked 10th on the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago. "He's still alive?" Tao Lord Cloud Rain frowned. "Ha ha ha, Extreme Fire, I heard that you're still alive so I'm here to see you." A tall and slender cultivator walked in. His long hair draped over his shoulders and he was slovenly as he laughed with a lazy expression. "Sect Master, Tao Lord Essence Dragon is here to pay his respects." "Sect Master, Tao Lord Grey Flame is here to pay his respects." "Sect Master, Tao Lord Divine Moon of Soaring Feather Sect is here to pay his respects." Chapter 977, Battle. Chapter 977, Battle. Soaring Feather Sect, one of the 9 immortal sects. Dao Lord Divine Moon was also a Dao Lord from thousands of years ago and became famous early on. Extreme Fire, how have you been? He stepped into the hall and cupped his hands towards Dao Lord Extreme Fire with a smile. At this point, Dao Lords from the 6 immortal sects of the Middle Continent were all present. Initially, Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others could have ignored the Dharma characteristic Dao Lords who entered earlier on. Now that even Dao Lord Divine Moon of Soaring Feather Sect had come to congratulate Extreme Fire, everyone had to re-evaluate 100 Refinement Sect status in the cultivation world. Or rather, they had to re-evaluate Dao Lord Extreme Fire's status. Many Dao Lords arrived to extend their congratulations. Everyone from 100 Refinement Sect felt invigorated. Throughout the entire cultivation world, at least half of the weapons came from 100 Refinement Sect. Of the remaining half, 20% came from the foundation of the various major sects themselves. Another 20% came from ruins, cave abodes, secret grounds and inheritance grounds. The remaining 10% were the other weapon refinement sections. As the number 1 weapon refinement grandmaster of 100 Refinement Sect, Dao Lord Extreme Fire's status and influence in the cultivation world could be imagined. There were very few Mahayana experts among the 4 unorthodox groups. That was because every cultivator had a limited amount of mental energy. If they were successful in other aspects such as weapon refinement, their path of cultivation will definitely be delayed. In the history of 100 Refinement Sect, Dao Lord Extreme Fire was one of the few people who had reached the peak of weapon refinement and cultivation. He was also a monster incarnate that countless seniors of sects had high hopes for and were certain that he could step into the Mahayana realm. That was also the reason why the entire 100 Refinement Sect was mobilized for Dao Lord Extreme Fire's return. Even conjoint body mighty figures were willing to serve him. Come, take a seat. A smile finally appeared on Dao Lord Extreme Fire's face when he saw his old friends coming to congratulate him. The sight of Dharma characteristic Dao Lord congratulating him one after another was shocking. Even Dao Lord Immortal Sword would not be able to produce such an effect. Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others' expressions darkened. With this, it was even more unrealistic for them to attack. At the very least, given their status, it was almost impossible for them to get Su Zimo out of Dao Lord Extreme Fire's hands. Right then, 100 Refinement Sect cultivator strode in with a bewildered expression. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "The Azura of the Fiend Sects is waiting outside." Dao Lord Immortal Sword and Dao Lord Extreme Fire frowned at the same time. The two of them exchanged glances without batting an eyelid. Neither of them knew why the Azura of the Fiend Sects was here. What's the Azura doing here? Dao Lord Cloud Rain frowned. As someone of the Fiend Sects, he had a better understanding of the situation. This Azura was the most terrifying monster incarnate of the Fiend Sects in recent years. He was bloodthirsty, eccentric and had no qualms about his actions. It was said that he had just entered Dharma characteristic realm a few decades ago. On Dao Lord Immortal Sword's side, apart from Dao Lord Cloud Rain who was from the Fiend Sects, the other Dao Lords did not have much interaction with this generation's Azura. As for Dao Lord Extreme Fire, he was an expert from 5,000 years ago and did not know the Azura at all. Su Zimo was the only one whose heart skipped a beat as a glint flickered through his eyes. The Azura? Could it be Yen Beichen? If it was Yen Beichen, he might be here to help him. Azura sect was located in the Middle Continent and it was only logical for the Azura to know about the Thousand Crane Tea Party. Su Zimo was about to send a voice transmission when Dao Lord Extreme Fire said slowly, "Invite him in." In Dao Lord Extreme Fire's mind, he could deal with anyone no matter whose side they were on. Before long, a black-robed man walked in with a cold expression. His face was sharp as a knife and his features were defined. In his hands was a long saber filled with blood chi. There were streaks of blood on the blade that resembled blood vessels that were surging with fresh blood as a blood stench filled the air. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. It was indeed Azura Yen Beichen. He was about to speak when Yen Beichen's gaze swept past his eyes casually. It was an unfamiliar gaze that did not linger at all, as though the two of them had never seen one another before. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he did not take the initiative to greet him. Even though he was puzzled, he knew that Yan Beichen must have his reasons for doing so. Azura, what are you doing here? Dao Lord Cloud Rain asked with a frown. If you can come, why can't I? Yan Beichen swept his gaze and asked indifferently. Dao Lord Cloud Rain's expression darkened as he harumphed and did not continue asking. All visitors are guests. Take a seat. Dao Lord Extreme Fire waved his hand and said. 100 Refinement Sect cultivator moved a chair in a fearful manner and placed it in front of Yan Beichen. With a frightened expression, he turned to leave hurriedly. Yan Beichen did not thank the cultivator either and sat down just like that. The blood-colored saber in his hands was placed horizontally across his knees. His eyes were half opened and he looked as though he was asleep. No one knew his intentions. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's gaze flickered for a moment before he suddenly said, Extreme Fire, now that things have come to this, there would only be an internecine outcome if we fight. I have a suggestion. Oh. Dao Lord Extreme Fire raised his brow. Neither of us had a good time the previous time we fought. Why don't we take this opportunity to fight properly? Dao Lord Immortal Sword challenged. Through his sentence, he was reminding Dao Lord Extreme Fire. After the battle at Thousand Demon Valley, he already knew that the ones who snatched the heaven-slaying sword art were them. Dao Lord Immortal Sword knew that the heaven-slaying sword art was with Su Zimo and would definitely not return empty-handed. However, this was 100 Refinement Sect and he might not be able to gain an advantage if both parties were to engage in a chaotic battle. But, he was absolutely confident in his combat strength. If he could use this battle to suppress Dao Lord Extreme Fire, he could use Dao Lord Extreme Fire in exchange for Su Zimo. You want to fight me? Dao Lord Extreme Fire laughed as flames burned in his eyes. Dao Lord Immortal Sword smiled and mocked, why? The number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago is frightened? Su Zimo was shocked to hear this. It was only now that he truly realized the status of Dao Lord Extreme Fire in the cultivation world 5,000 years ago. The fact that he was the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic alongside his identity as a weapon refinement grandmaster meant that he was an influence that even conjoint body mighty figures could not match. I think that will work. Dao Lord Cloud Rain clapped his hands. One of them was the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago and the other is the current number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking. What a rare sight. Why not have a fight for all of us to broaden our horizons? Grandmaster, there's no need for us to take this on. That's right. You've only just reconstructed your body and you're definitely not familiar with the control and perception of this body. There's no need for you to take the risk. Dao Lord Scarlet Star and the others hurriedly sent voice transmissions. Most importantly, Dao Lord Extreme Fire was extremely famous 5,000 years ago and that was him at his peak. However, 5,000 years had passed and for Dharma characteristic Dao Lords with 10,000 years of lifespan, Dao Lord Extreme Fire was already in his later stages and was definitely not a match for Dao Lord Immortal Sword who was at his peak. Dao Lord Extreme Fire thought nothing of it and stood up slowly with a surging battle intent. Very good. I haven't fought for 5,000 years and was just craving for an opponent. You came at the right time. Battle. Dao Lord Extreme Fire hollered and dermic powers surged in his body as he conjured a scarlet spear in reverse. It was almost transparent and scorching as though it had been burned for 7 days and nights. Chapter 978, Supreme Dharma Characteristic. Chapter 978, Supreme Dharma Characteristic. Swoosh. Dao Lord Extreme Fire flipped his hand and a red light flashed. Instantly, the fire spear arrived before Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the surrounding air was ignited. Many Dao Lords retreated. If they were too close to a battle of this level, they would be drawn into it. Clang. There was no way to tell what Dao Lord Immortal Sword was doing. However, a chilling long sword with 6 dermic patterns etched on it appeared in his hands. It was a Khanate Dao Lord dermic weapon. Although the fire spear was fast, Dao Lord Immortal Sword's sword technique was even faster. After drawing his sword, he slashed. Buzz! The sword struck the tip of the spear and sliced through the scarlet body of the spear, producing an ear-piercing sound as it cut the latter into pieces. Back in Thousand Demon Valley, Su Zimo had already witnessed Dao Lord Immortal Sword's methods. However, that was only a clone of Dao Lord Immortal Sword. Now that he was watching at a close distance, Su Zimo truly felt the terror of the number 1 on the Dharma characteristic ranking. The two of them merely exchanged a single move and the dermic powers in the entire hall seemed to have been sucked dry, causing the hall to tremble. Swash! Dao Lord Immortal Sword destroyed Dao Lord Extreme Fire's fire spear with a single slash and did not pause at all. In a flash, he transformed into a sword beam and arrived in front of Dao Lord Extreme Fire instantly. He knew that Dharma characteristic Dao Lords were definitely not his match in melee combat. Therefore, he had shortened the distance at the first moment, wanting to suppress Dao Lord Extreme Fire with his Supreme Sword Dao. Boom! Dao Lord Extreme Fire's expression was unchanged as he touched his glabella gently with his finger. A scarlet tripod flew out and landed in front of him, blocking the incoming sword. That gigantic tripod was also a Khanate Dao Lord dermic weapon. The moment the two of them exchanged blows, they had already summoned their destiny dermic weapons. Swash! Dao Lord Immortal Sword flashed again and circled around the scarlet tripod, arriving behind Dao Lord Extreme Fire. His movement technique was way too fast. Even some Dharma characteristic Dao Lords present could not see it clearly, let alone nascent souls and void reversions. Is this sword Sect's sword escape technique? It truly lives up to its reputation. Dao Lord Immortal Sword has killed many strong foes in the fight for the Dharma characteristic ranking with this sword escape technique. No one in the same realm can match that movement technique. None of the Dharma characteristic Dao Lords present were nobodies and each of them had their own interpretation of this battle. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's judgment was accurate. He wielded a 3-foot green sword and relied on his sword escape technique to move nimbly. As for Dao Lord Extreme Fire's destiny dermic weapon, it was a scarlet tripod. Although it was strong, it was not flexible enough. Dao Lord Extreme Fire did not even turn around as he conjured hand seals with both hands and hollered softly, "Disperse." Swoosh! 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 Instantly, 3 scarlet flames appeared beside Dao Lord Extreme Fire and revolved around him. Scarlet Flame Spiral Lamp. Su Zimo, Nangong Ling and the others recognized it immediately. It was a dermic art from the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra that could be used for both offense and defense. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's sword was struck by a ball of flames the moment it arrived behind Dao Lord Extreme Fire. Instantly, flames burst forth from his sword and its temperature rose rapidly. Extinguish! He hollered and sword chi burst forth from his body, tearing through the void with a power that seemed as though it could destroy all life. Lifeless Sword Art. Sword cultivators specialized in killing. For Dao Lord Immortal Sword, killing techniques were even pushed to their limits. Dao Lord Extreme Fire had already turned around. His eyes lit up as he conjured hand seals repeatedly. The 3 balls of flames that were initially surrounding him gathered rapidly and formed a gigantic fireball. The Samadhi Dao Fire. Swoosh! The ball of fire smashed towards Dao Lord Immortal Sword viciously. Everywhere it passed, dermic powers would be incinerated and space would distort. Lifeless Sword Art, slash! Dao Lord Immortal Sword's blood chi burst forth as his sword buzzed and trembled. He conjured a sword art with one hand and swung his sword with the other, slashing down fiercely at the incoming fireball. Boom! The Samadhi Dao Fire was split into pieces by that slash. Not good. Even the Samadhi Dao Fire can't defend against the sharpness of the Immortal Sword. Dao Lord Scarlet Star's expression changed as he sensed something amiss. Su Zimo focused his gaze. He could clearly see that Tao Lord Extreme Fire's Dharmic arts had not stopped even after the Samadhi Tao fire was destroyed by Tao Lord Immortal Sword. The shattered flames floated towards Tao Lord Immortal Sword. When it arrived, it gathered together and formed another Samadhi Tao fire. Many Tao Lords were in an uproar. His fire-taming skills astounded everyone. Su Zimo was momentarily stunned as well, to think that fire techniques could be manipulated to that extent. Even the bystanders were surprised and astonished, let alone Tao Lord Immortal Sword, who was directly involved in the situation. He destroyed the Samadhi Tao fire with a single slash. Before he could retract his sword, a ball of Samadhi Tao fire had already arrived before him. Although the flame was now much smaller than before, it was still fatal. It was too late for him to retract his sword. Lifeless sword body. Tao Lord Immortal Sword roared and a gigantic phantom shot out from his body, bursting forth with endless sword chi that destroyed the Samadhi Tao fire before him instantly. Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic. At this point of the battle, what surprised everyone was the fact that Tao Lord Immortal Sword was disadvantaged and was forced to release his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic. 89 feet, it's already infinitely close to 90 feet. Impressive. Back when the Immortal Sword obtained number 1 on the Dharma characteristic ranking, this Dharma characteristic was only 85 feet tall. To think that it has grown to 89 feet. I reckon there's a high chance he would be able to cultivate a 90 feet tall Dharma characteristic. The outcome of this battle is probably going to depend on the clash of the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics. As the Tao Lords discussed, the gigantic Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic revealed its sharpness and charged towards Tao Lord Extreme Fire like an unsheathed sword. Boom! A loud bang echoed from Tao Lord Extreme Fire's body as well. A gigantic phantom appeared above his head and rose rapidly. It was scarlet red and burned with raging flames, emitting a scorching aura. The expressions of many Tao Lords changed gradually with grim expressions. They suddenly realized that the Dharma characteristic before them seemed to be half a head taller than Tao Lord Immortal Sword's Dharma characteristic. This Dharma characteristic. Heavens, 90 feet tall. A supreme Dharma characteristic. 9 was an extreme number, and a Dharma characteristic that was 90 feet tall could be considered as a supreme Dharma characteristic no matter which type it was. Extreme Fire, what a surprise. Seems like you're prepared to teach your juniors a lesson. Tao Lord Divine Moon of Soaring Feathers Sect could not help but exclaim. 90 feet, supreme Dharma characteristic? Tao Lord Cloud Rain's eyes widened in disbelief. 5,000 years ago, Tao Lord Extreme Fire's Dharma characteristic was only 80 feet tall and was similar to his. How did Tao Lord Extreme Fire's Dharma characteristic reach such a terrifying realm after 5,000 years despite losing his physical body? Everyone thought that Tao Lord Extreme Fire's combat strength would definitely decline after he lost his body and was now in his later years after his peak. However, apart from Su Zimo, no one knew how Tao Lord Extreme Fire managed to survive the past 5,000 years. In the depths of the cold lake, Tao Lord Extreme Fire fought against that unknown poison alone for 5,000 years. It would have been fine if Tao Lord Extreme Fire had died. Now that he was reborn, his essence spirit had long turned incomparably pure under that unimaginable tempering, reaching a terrifying degree. It had even surpassed the Dharma characteristic realm. Even if Tao Lord Immortal Sword did not challenge him, Extreme Fire would have fought him. Extreme Fire wanted to make use of Tao Lord Immortal Sword to take the most important step. Chapter 979, Domineering Suppression. Chapter 979, Domineering Suppression. If he continued cultivating without this battle, it might not be long before Extreme Fire entered the conjoint body realm. However, with a powerful opponent like Tao Lord Immortal Sword, there was a high chance that Tao Lord Extreme Fire would be able to find an opportunity to break through if he won this battle. Tao Lord Extreme Fire wanted to make use of Tao Lord Immortal Sword to accomplish the title of a mighty figure. He had not cultivated for 5,000 years. However, the experience of fighting against that terrifying poison caused his Tao heart and will to reach an indestructible and relentless state. Therefore, after reconstructing his body, his combat strength was much stronger than before. It was precisely because of the 5,000 years of grueling trial that Tao Lord Extreme Fire managed to attain a 90 feet Dharma characteristic. A supreme Dharma characteristic? Tao Lord Immortal Sword's eyes were bloodshot. He was truly enraged and could not be bothered about capturing Tao Lord Extreme Fire alive. He only wanted to win this battle and give it his all. I'll slay your supreme Dharma characteristic today. Tao Lord Immortal Sword roared with a ferocious expression. Tao Lord Extreme Fire's Dharma characteristic was half a head taller than Tao Lord Immortal Sword. However, only a fight would reveal which of the two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were stronger. Even if an ordinary heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was of a similar height as a legacy heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that has been passed down through history, it would definitely be inferior in strength. Legacy Dharma characteristics that are passed down through the foundations of the super sect, such as the 18 meters metal body, withered Zen Dharma characteristic, glass dermic body and earth malevolent body, possess shocking power. Lifeless sword body was one of the legacy Dharma characteristics of sword sect. Tao Lord Extreme Fire's eyes burned with flames as he said coldly, "Immortal Sword, you've lost. From today onwards, all your glory will be trampled beneath my feet." Today, Tao Lord Extreme Fire wanted to trample on Tao Lord Immortal Sword and take a step further into the conjoint body realm. Everyone thought that Tao Lord Extreme Fire's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic did not have a title. Little did they know that this heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was the Scarlet Flame dermic body depicted in the top-tier cultivation technique, Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra. It was the epitome of the Fire Tao. The two Tao Lords stood facing each other in the hall. Their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were indomitable. One of them was burning with raging flames while the other was emitting sharp sword chi. Waving their arms, they collided violently. Boom! The clash between the two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics was frightening. The entire hall was dissected instantly. Clang! 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 The sword chi burst forth and shattered the entire hall into countless holes. As the raging flames burned, the shattered hall melted into a fiery red liquid and fell like a rain of fire. Many Tao Lords retreated in shock. The two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics collided repeatedly. Their massive figures resembled two divine beings with endless explosions that threatened to destroy the world. That was the power of Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. The eyes of Nangong Ling and the others were filled with yearning and envy. If they could wield power as such, they would not have wasted their lifetime cultivating. The fight between the two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics had reached its climax. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic condensed a gigantic sword with both hands and sliced off one of the arms of the Scarlet Flame Dharma body viciously. The arm that was burning with flames fell like a thick stone pillar and the entire ground shook. To begin with, the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was a phantom conjured by cultivators. However, that arm seemed corporeal when it was sliced off. The power of that severed arm was enough to kill ordinary Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. Poof! Although the Scarlet Flame dermic body only had one arm left, it seized the opportunity to punch through the chest of the lifeless sword body. The clash seemed like an internecine outcome. However, Tao Lord Immortal Sword's expression was obviously paler. The fist of the Scarlet Flame dermic body pierced into the chest of the lifeless sword body and a bedazzling scarlet flame burst forth from the wound. Swoosh! The blazing flames engulfed the lifeless sword body from its chest inside out. If the flames came from the outside, the lifeless sword body could still destroy them with its sharp sword chi. But now, the flames were coming from within the lifeless sword body. Roar! Tao Lord Immortal Sword let out a low growl and his body trembled. His essence spirit was pushed to its limits and dermic powers were injected continuously. The heaven and earth Dharma characteristic let out a painful roar in the raging flames as well. Burn it! Tao Lord Extreme Fire shouted and willed. The scarlet flame dermic body strode forward and opened its mouth, spitting out a stream of scarlet lava onto the lifeless sword body. Shing! The sword chi on the lifeless sword body was instantly extinguished by the terrifying lava. The lifeless sword body struggled and roared. Its eyes, ears, mouth and nose were filled with raging flames and thick smoke. The flames inside and outside incinerated the lifeless sword body completely. Many Dao lords were dumbfounded when they saw that, unable to conceal the shock in their eyes. Dao Lord Immortal Sword was defeated. The number 1 of the current Dharma characteristic ranking had lost to the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years. The latter was already past his peak and was in his later years. Although the scarlet flame dermic body had lost an arm, it was still present and the flames on its body did not diminish. It could still release a terrifying power. As for the lifeless sword body, it was incinerated into nothingness. Boom! The scarlet flame dermic body with a severed arm roared and strode forward, stomping down fiercely at Dao Lord Immortal Sword with its flaming feet. That stomp carried a supreme might as though it was crushing an ant. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's face was pale as he swallowed a handful of elixirs and forced his essence spirit to activate. He conjured hand seals and conjured a gigantic sword that stabbed towards the incoming foot. Clang! An ear-piercing sound could be heard when the sword touched the feet. Dao Lord Immortal Sword shuddered. Right after, under countless gazes, the gigantic sword was burned red and almost transparent. Snap! The sword broke. Dao Lord Immortal Sword looked as though he was struck by lightning. Before the feet of the scarlet flame dermic body could land on him, he retreated and avoided the calamity. Even so, he was severely injured and spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. A crushing defeat. Without his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, Dao Lord Immortal Sword's strength was not enough to fight against a supreme Dharma characteristic. Even with a severed arm, a supreme Dharma characteristic could suppress him. Bang! 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 The scarlet flame dermic body strode towards Dao Lord Immortal Sword with torrential flames. Fellow Taoists, save me! Dao Lord Immortal Sword shouted with a terrified expression. Dao Lord Breaking Skies of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Dao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace and the others were still aggressive earlier on, but now, they were wary and did not dare to attack. They were no match for even the damaged scarlet flame dermic body. This battle had stunned many Dao Lords. Dao Lord Extreme Fire was clearly filled with killing intent and was invincible, no one dared to take him on. Dao Lord Cloud Rain's eyes flickered but he did not attack. While the other Dao Lords did not make a move out of fear, he had other motives in his mind. If Dao Lord Extreme Fire were to disregard everything and kill Dao Lord Immortal Sword, 100 Refinement Sect would most likely suffer the wrath of Sword Sect. At that time, many sects and factions might be implicated. For him, he had everything to gain and nothing to lose if a fight between the orthodox sects were to break out. Although he had once helped Dao Lord Immortal Sword fight for the heaven-slaying sword art, that was on account of the benefits the latter promised. Fairy Snowdrift had an indifferent expression. Before she came, she had already said that she would remain neutral and would not interfere in the fight between the two parties. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's heart turned cold when he saw the reactions of the other Dao Lords. Chapter 980, Complete Defeat. Chapter 980, Complete Defeat. Senior Brother. With a shout, Sword Sect's Qin Pianran stood out. Boom! Her figure swayed and a phantom image rushed out of her body. Sword Chi rumbled as she charged towards the scarlet flame dermic body without hesitation. Under the circumstances where all other Dao Lords were retreating out of fear, she stood out. Qin Pianran's Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was known as the Startling Sword Body and was also one of the legacy Dharma characteristics of Sword Sect. It was 70 feet tall. Under normal circumstances, the Startling Sword Body would definitely be considered as a top-tier Dharma characteristic. However, in front of the 90 feet tall Dharma characteristic, her Dharma characteristic was like a child that charged forward like a moth to a flame. Qin Pianran ignored her own heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. In a flash, she arrived beside Tao Lord Immortal Sword and helped him up before retreating swiftly. Boom! The two heaven and earth Dharmic characteristics collided with a deafening bang. Qin Pianran's startling sword body only managed to defend for a moment before it was disintegrated into nothingness by the scarlet flame Dharmic body that had lost an arm. With her essence spirit shaken, she grunted and staggered with a pale expression. However, because of that delay, she had already escaped from the battlefield with Tao Lord Immortal Sword and was temporarily out of danger. Thank you, junior sister. Tao Lord Immortal Sword panted heavily and felt a sense of trepidation in his heart. Instinctively, he gripped Qin Pianran's hand tightly, his palms filled with cold sweat. Senior brother, it's all good as long as you're fine. This person is too strong. Let's return to the sect first. Qin Pianran's heart skipped a beat when she was grabbed by Tao Lord Immortal Sword. She blushed and persuaded softly. Tao Lord Immortal Sword gradually calmed down. When he saw the blush on Qin Pianran's face, a thought crossed his mind as he whispered, "Junior sister, I understand your feelings for me. Don't worry, I won't let you down." Yes. Qin Pianran lowered her head and replied in a voice as soft as a mosquito. After all these years, she had been waiting for that statement from her senior brother. At that moment, she felt incomparably blessed as her nose stuffed up while her eyes reddened. Many of the Tao Lords present had calm expressions when they saw that. However, two of them sneered internally. One of them was Tao Lord Cloud Rain. He was an expert in the field of love and was experienced. Naturally, he could tell that Tao Lord Immortal Sword was merely patronizing Qin Pianran. The other was Fairy Snowdrift. That was because before this, Tao Lord Immortal Sword had once expressed his love for her, but she merely rejected him. The scarlet flame Dharmic body stood in the middle of the battlefield with its scarlet red hair dancing in the wind. Flames raged on its body and it did not continue its pursuit. Tao Lord Extreme Fire looked at Tao Lord Immortal Sword, who had fled far away, with a mocking look in his eyes as he declared, "The Dharma characteristic ranking this time round is truly lousy. The number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking is nothing much." Tao Lord Immortal Sword grit his teeth and veins popped up on his forehead with an indignant expression. He had lost all face in front of everyone with that crushing defeat. Before long, this crushing defeat would spread through the entire Middle Continent and the cultivation world. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's heart was filled with endless hatred and anger. His gaze shifted between Tao Lord Extreme Fire and Su Zimo. The humiliation today was a gift from Tao Lord Extreme Fire, and Su Zimo could not escape responsibility as well. If he had obtained the heaven-slaying sword art back in Thousand Demon Valley and cultivated it, the outcome of today's battle would have been the complete opposite. Tao Lord Extreme Fire waved his hand and said coldly, "Scram. Remember, don't come to 100 Refinement Sect to try and boss us around in the future. This is just a lesson for you." That old thing. Tao Lord Cloud Rain cursed internally. He thought that Tao Lord Extreme Fire would go on a killing spree in his rage and incur the hatred of the immortal sections. To think that Tao Lord Extreme Fire would stop in time. That was Tao Lord Extreme Fire. He had grasped the situation perfectly. Even though there were no major immortal sects who were hostile towards him, he had also achieved his goal of establishing his dominance and intimidation. Not only would they have to retreat today, if anybody within the cultivation world wanted to lay their hands on Su Zimo in the future, they would have to deliberate as well. There would be no repeat of today's situation where people could just barge into 100 Refinement Sect asking for someone. Extreme Fire, I'll definitely take revenge for today's humiliation. Tao Lord Immortal Sword clenched his fists and spoke through gritted teeth. You don't have a chance anymore. Tao Lord Extreme Fire said indifferently, "It's all thanks to you that I was able to receive the opportunity to break through so quickly." Many Tao Lords were alarmed. Break through? If he broke through to the Dharma characteristic realm, wouldn't he be at the conjoint body realm? Dao Lord Immortal Sword could tell what Dao Lord Extreme Fire was implying as well. His blood chi attacked his heart and he spat out another mouthful of blood with a dispirited expression. It was a complete defeat. Dao Lord Extreme Fire did not take him seriously at all for this battle. He was merely used as a stepping stone and for Dao Lord Extreme Fire to exert his dominance. Senior brother, let's go. When she saw Dao Lord Immortal Sword in such a state, Qin Pianran felt a sense of pity and persuaded gently, Senior brother, you're a titular disciple of the sect and your talent is definitely not inferior to anyone else's. Go back and continue cultivating. You'll definitely make a comeback. For Dao Lord Immortal Sword, words such as titular disciple and talent were extremely piercing right now. In fact, he even felt like Qin Pianran was mocking him. Humph. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's expression was cold as he flung Qin Pianran's arm away fiercely, completely forgetting that the woman beside him had just saved his life. Qin Pianran sighed softly and was not angry. In her opinion, anyone would lose their composure after receiving such a blow. She believed that her senior brother was not intentionally targeting her. Fellow Taoists who are here to extend their congratulations can stay as guests at 100 Refinement Sect. Dao Lord Extreme Fire surveyed his surroundings and said slowly, as for those with evil intentions, please return. Men, send the guests off. Many Dao Lords could sense that Dao Lord Extreme Fire's aura was rising continuously. It was at a critical point. Dao Lord Extreme Fire was about to break through to the conjoint body realm. This is a rare opportunity. I'll be thick-skinned and stay behind to observe. Dao Lord Divine Moon smiled faintly. Not bad indeed. We were just here to extend our congratulations. To think that we would encounter such an opportunity. Another Dharma characteristic Dao Lord clapped and laughed. Not everyone would get the chance to witness a breakthrough to the conjoint body realm. It was an extremely valuable experience for all the Dao Lords present. As for Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others, they were naturally too embarrassed to stay and left with darkened expressions. If you allow it, I would like to stay and observe as well, Fairy Snowdrift said with cupped fists. Sure. Dao Lord Extreme Fire nodded. Fairy Snowdrift had been neutral the entire time and Dao Lord Extreme Fire would not target her. Hee, Extreme Fire, see you in the future. Dao Lord Cloud Rain knew his place and cupped his fists before turning to leave. Su Zimo looked at Yen Beichen. Although no one knew the purpose of Yen Beichen's trip, if he wanted to stay, Su Zimo would definitely speak up for him and Dao Lord Extreme Fire would not refuse either. However, Yen Beichen stood up and turned to leave expressionlessly. He had not said anything the entire time. The remaining Dao Lords frowned in confusion. Chapter 981, Heartless Saber. Chapter 981, Heartless Saber. What did the Azura come here for? He came to visit 100 Refinement Sect and left just like that? I'm not sure. That person has always acted without reservations. Who knows what he's thinking? He's probably here for Su Zimo as well. However, he probably knew that he was not a match when Dao Lord Extreme Fire displayed his strength and decided to flee. Many Dao Lords looked at Yen Beichen's back view and discussed softly. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. He was probably the only one who knew that Yen Beichen had an ulterior motive for coming here. Furthermore, it was most likely for him. Everyone, please proceed to the inner hall. Dao Lord Extreme Fire nodded at Su Zimo and turned to head within 100 Refinement Sect. Dao Lord Extreme Fire was about to break through to the conjoint body realm and this was an important matter. Su Zimo did not disturb him for Yen Beichen's matter either. Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo headed out of 100 Refinement Sect alone. Uncle Master, where are you going? Just as Dao Lord Scarlet Star was about to leave, he bumped into Su Zimo and asked casually. I'm just heading out for a walk, Su Zimo replied ambiguously. Dao Lord Scarlet Star reminded, Uncle Master, be careful. Don't leave 100 Refinement Sect. Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others shouldn't have gone far. With that said, Dao Lord Scarlet Star left hurriedly to inform the elders of the sect. Dao Lord Extreme Fire was about to break through from the Dharma characteristic realm, and all the conjoint body elders of 100 Refinements sect had to appear to protect him. Nothing must happen during this process. At that moment, everyone's attention was on Dao Lord Extreme Fire, and no one noticed Su Zimo's departure. Su Zimo headed forward and sped outside 100 Refinements sect. Passing through the entrance of 100 Refinements sect, Su Zimo arrived before the gatekeeper boy and asked, "Where did those Dharma characteristic Dao Lords go?" "Over there." The gatekeeper boy pointed. Su Zimo nodded and sprinted in the direction the boy pointed without hesitation. He was not afraid even if he encountered Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others. Although he was no match for them in terms of combat strength, he could rely on his many trump cards such as Blood Escape to flee. Before long, Su Zimo sensed something. Lowering his body, his entire body was almost stuck to the ground. His limbs moved at the same time and his body slithered forward like a gigantic python without a sound. Su Zimo came to a dense patch of grass before coming to a stop. He squinted his eyes and listened intently. There were a few figures standing in midair up ahead. Sword Sect's Dao Lord Immortal Sword and Qin Pian Ran. There was also Dao Lord Cloud Rain, Heavenly Dipper Sect's Dao Lord Breaking Skies, Zephyr Thunder Palace's Dao Lord Fire Cloud, Chaos Essence Sect's Dao Lord Cloud Sun, Formless Monastery's Monk Kong Wen and Wisdom Monastery's Monk Liao Ming. There was also Dao Lord Heaven Sea of one of the upper sects, 5 Elements Sect. The 9 Dao Lords stood together. Opposite them stood another figure in black robes with a cold expression and a blood-red saber on his shoulder. The Azura, Yen Beichen. "Azura, why are you following us?" Dao Lord Cloud Rain frowned slightly and asked with a hint of impatience. The Azura had an eccentric personality and was bloodthirsty. Even those of the Fiend's sects were unwilling to interact with him and wanted nothing more than to avoid him. Yen Beichen replied indifferently, "Since my Dao title is the Azura, I'm naturally here to kill." Dao Lord Cloud Rain asked, "Who?" "All of you." Yen Beichen said 3 words and the entire place went silent. "Fufu." Haha. Immediately after, Dao Lord Breaking Skies, Dao Lord Fire Cloud and the others laughed mockingly. "Are you joking with us?" Dao Lord Cloud Son of Chaos Essence Sect sneered. Among them, there were either late-stage or perfected Dharma characteristic cultivators. Furthermore, there were existences like Dao Lord Cloud Rain. Although the Azura was extremely famous, he had just entered the Dharma characteristic realm. Everyone truly did not take him seriously. If not for the fact that Dao Lord Cloud Rain was present, they would have been able to kill this Azura with the excuse of slaying evil fiends. However, among the 9 Dao Lords, there were a few who did not laugh. Dao Lord Cloud Rain was one of them. He knew that the Azura was never one to joke. If the Azura wanted to kill someone, he would definitely do it. Dao Lord Immortal Sword frowned and looked at the Azura with a wary gaze. If he was in his peak condition, he could naturally suppress the Azura with ease. But now that he was severely injured and his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was destroyed, he could not reconjure it within a short period of time. If he were to truly fight against the Azura, the outcome would be unpredictable. Thankfully, there were 9 people on their side and there should be no danger. Dao Lord Heaven Sea of 5 Elements Sect knew that he was the weakest among them and did not have the right to mock the Azura. He coughed gently and asked, "Fellow Daoist, we have no feud with you. Why do you want to kill us?" "Azuras don't need a reason to kill." Yen Beichen's eyes shone with a murderous intent. Without any warning, his shoulders moved and the blood-colored saber seemed to have a life of its own as it jumped up. The blood vessels on the saber expanded and blood chi filled the air. Swash! Blood flashed. It was too fast. Dao Lord Heaven Sea froze. The next moment, his head flew into the air, spraying blood everywhere. In midair, the headless corpse fell. His essence spirit had long been minced by the sharp saber chi and did not even have the chance to escape. Dao Lord Heaven Sea was dead. Even till his death, he did not understand why he died. He did not expect the Azura to be so decisive and not give him any chance to react. When Su Zimo, who was sprawled in the grass, saw that, his heart skipped a beat and a look of realization flashed through his eyes. He finally understood why the Azura was here. The Azura was here to kill. The Azura was here to kill for him. Su Zimo was right. The news of the Thousand Crane Tea Party spread throughout the Middle Continent, and Yen Beichen naturally heard it as well. Furthermore, Yen Beichen knew that Sword Sect, Chaos Essence Sect and the other major immortal sects would definitely not let things go and would definitely take action. Therefore, even though he had just entered the Dharma characteristic realm, he still rushed over fearlessly after hearing that many Dao lords wanted to cause trouble for Su Zimo. It was just like in the past. Back when Yen Beichen had just advanced to the Void Reversion realm and heard that Ethereal Peak was in trouble, he crossed an entire region and traveled day and night for a year before resolving Ethereal Peak's crisis almost single-handedly. Everyone thought that the Azura was heartless and disregarded his kin. However, Su Zimo knew that although the Azura achieved his Dao through killing, the blood that flowed through his bones was filled with boiling passion. What was heartless was the Azura Saber in his hands. Although Dao Lord Extreme Fire was powerful, he still had reservations and did not dare to kill Dao Lord Immortal Sword for real. Therefore, he had to stop in time once he attained his goal of establishing dominance and intimidation. After all, Dao Lord Extreme Fire still had to take 100 Refinement Sect into consideration. However, Yen Beichen had nothing to worry about. That was because he was an Azura whose Dao was proven by killing. Dao Lord Extreme Fire was merely teaching Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others a lesson. As for Azura Yen Beichen, he had no intention of letting the 9 of them return alive. The Dao Lords were shocked and retreated. Apart from Dao Lord Cloud Rain, no one expected the Azura to really dare to make a move against 9 of them. Less than that, none of them expected the Azura's methods to be this terrifying. Dao Lord Heaven Sea did not even have a chance to react before he was slain by a single saber strike. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.